Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the halfway point of Season 2 of the Virtual Motorsport Online Touring Car UK Championship, as we now find ourselves in a little place called Little Butterworth in Cheshire, at the home of racing at the northwest of the country, Oulton Park Island, for the halfway point of the season. We had shenanigans at Silverstone 4 weeks ago, and there was fast-paced action at Thruxton a fortnight ago. But we're here at Oulton Park to really sort of close off the first half of the season before the drivers get a little bit of a break for a couple of weeks. But it's Alex Goldschmidt and Phil Kinch back with you once more. 2.26 miles of this fantastic circuit. Not the full iteration, but it will provide a lot of fast-paced action over probably the best part, just over 100 miles for the three races here tonight. And Phil, it's a track we've both visited literally within a week of each other back in July of this year. It really provides a stern test, and it's going to provide us with fantastic action this evening, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's Oulton Park Island configuration is a cracking little circuit, well known for, as you say, providing exciting races. Quite a few overtaking opportunities, although you've got to be quite brave to take on some of these. And yes, having made my first visit there about 6 weeks ago, I'm in love with the place. I'm looking forward to going back there again. And I haven't forgotten last season's visit, which was quite exciting, I think we can say, quite simply.
Yes, especially going down through Denton and Dentonton into the Cascades. But as you can see on the bottom right, there are the live standings. Chris Butcher, the reigning defending champion, leads the way on 195 points, and Lewis McGlade, who is one of 8 different winners out of the 12 races that have taken place so far, 40 points behind. Dan Kell in third, Matthew Churgwin, Toby Davis, Ben Willis, Luke Mitchell, who has now swapped alliances. Well, he's gone to the big team, Kings Racing, and Ed Straw has now become an independent driver. Scott Mitchell is rounding out the top 7 positions. You've also got Jack Nichols in there in 8th. He's also a race winner this season at the first race at Thruxton a fortnight ago. Phil Morby is also in the top 10. And looking at the team's standings, it is a dead heat at the moment between Sancho Simsport and THR, who are on 314 points apiece. There is the new revised lineup at the moment, because at the minute, well, no, it looks like E-Team Brit Blue have lost an entry due to no attendance by Sandro Ballesteros. We've got Aspects Esports A's Cameron Howes and Harry Warshaw in Esports B, both running in the Vauxhall and the BMW respectively. So Luke Mitchell joins Jack Nichols and Scott Mitchell at Kings Racing, and Ed Straw becomes an independent. So quite a lot of changes up and down the order. As you can see, there's a TBC after what we would see normally with regards to Dan Hyde's name. But it is very much the case that we have had 8 different winners from 12 different races. The most successful driver in terms of race victories this season is Chris Butcher with 3. 2 drivers on 2 race wins apiece, Dan Kell and Ryan Elliott, and the remainder are Lewis McGlade, Ben Willis, Jack Nichols, Scott Mitchell and Ross McGregor. Now, Ross McGregor only came into the season due to other commitments back at Thruxton. He also competed at Donington Park, but qualifying, 15-minute session. And Oulton Park, very, very different from the fast-paced Leviathan that is Thruxton, that I actually was at this quite recently for the previous round of the British Touring Car Championship. Oulton Park is a different dynamic altogether. You've got rapid elevation changes going down the dip through Old Hall into the avenue, through into Denton's. Then you've got the sweeping left at Cascades, and then as you can see here, going through into Hilltop and then into Knickerbrook. You know, another significant descent here, Phil. These drivers are really going to have it all to do tonight.
Oulton Park does make you work quite hard, and especially through the last part of the lap. Once you've made it through Clay Hill, you know, Druids is a very fast corner that, if you get it right, can really give you some speed onto the back straight. And then Lodge Corner is really the sort of last overtaking opportunity you've got into the lap. But again, you've got to be brave, going into Lodge, you've got to be side by side with the driver you're trying to pass and be able to make that work as you come through Deer Leap and complete the lap. So lots of challenging corners, like you say, fast sweeping corners. You've got the hairpin, the Island Bend itself, which offers a great overtaking opportunity. They are going to work hard this evening as they try and get their places as best they can.
So drivers looking to get themselves onto their hot lap. So there's Bobby Vakuinov in the number 21 Honda Civic FK2. We've got 21 drivers out for qualifying. Don't seem to see Chance Draycott, who was looking to get his best ever finishes last time out at Thruxton. I did actually watch his stream, and he was very, very close indeed to hitting the top 10. I think he qualified P7, but not exactly the best way that his evening ended. But we're going to see quite a lot of cars trying their utmost. I would imagine that the BMWs are going to be quite strong around here. But looking at the way that the elevation changes and the rapid turn-in, Toby Davies has just gone purple in Sector 1 with a 30... Well, it was a 31.9 that he's just put in. Dan Kell has just put in a 31.791. So the front-wheel drive cars could be at a bit of an advantage here at Thruxton. But along the longer parts, between Druids and Lodge, there's Toby Davies goes Knight Rider styly. Through, I think that was probably through. It was looking to be Druids, I think, if memory serves me correctly. So 2 wheels up in the air, and he still manages a purple Sector 2. But Chris Shepherd has just gone purple in Sector 2 with a 27.6. Toby Davis, it was Ryan Elliott that has set the initial benchmark of 1 minute 23.045. Toby Davis finds himself as Chris Shepherd has gone rally crossing, going through Old Hall. Cameron Hall's very, very body in white is the automotive term there. He's got Callum Wilson going through the inside of him, going through Cascades, and all of a sudden Halls manages to knock one of the cones aside. There's Ed Straw trying his level best in the number 17 King's Dealer Racing Vauxhall Astra, the car currently used by Daniel Lloyd and Jason Plato in 2021, but still good to see. I mean, you can just see that how hard Ed is pushing as he goes through Deer Leap and across the line. And where does he actually place? Because it's quite a long run. And yeah, Luke Mitchell now running in the same livery as so gone is the old white and red livery that we saw on Luke Mitchell's car up until Thruxton, but now he's had to fall in line with the other two guys, Jack Nicholls and Scott Mitchell. And at the minute, I don't actually see Scott Mitchell and Jack Nicholls on the server quite yet.
No, it doesn't look as though they're on there just there at the moment. So still the 21 cars, but definitely the other 2 Kings Racing Vauxhalls missing from the timesheets at the moment. Noticing definitely though from both Luke Mitchell and Ed Straw that they were really pushing hard coming out of Lodge Corner, getting a bit of understeer and then trying to control that and stay off the dirt, which they weren't successful with coming through Deer Leap. So definitely pushing on their hot laps as we continue through qualifying. Just watching Chris Shepherd going through Cascades and now making the run down towards the Island Bend hairpin in what I can think you say is a completely unmissable red Honda Civic FK2. You're not going to miss those.
Chris Shepherd definitely, the back end started staking out of braking there, going through into the Island hairpin, but he's currently running P3 at the moment on a 1 minute 23.1. That's his best lap time. But Ryan Elliott at the moment showing on a 1 minute 22.6, and that's the pole sitter's time at the moment. We've got just over 9 minutes and 20 to go as Chris Shepherd has got one of the looks like one of the Drake Racing BMWs just up ahead, but through goes Shepherd once again, and he's going to be going through. That was through Druids and now into Lodge Corner, which is a fast right-hander that then brings you into Deer Leap. You've got to really nail the apex as Shepherd did there. Purple in Sector 2 from the Honda as he goes up through Deer Leap. As we ride on board with the Honda, does he improve is the biggest question here. 22.673. that effectively puts him. That is a front row lockout at the moment for Epic Racing. Lewis McGlade, currently second in the standings on 155 points, goes up into P6. Now he's running with the championship ballast as he's second in the championship. Bradley Brockies definitely didn't want to go wide in the 330 IM Sport there for E-Team Britt White, and manages to bring it back to the garage. There's Cameron Brewster from Drake Racing getting it all kinds of crossed up. That was going through Old Hall, and he managed to keep that one together. As Bobby Vakunov comes out for qualifying. Cameron Brewster now through into the left-hander here at Cascades, runs a little bit wide but didn't really touch the grass with the right-hand side set of wheels in that BMW 330i M Sport, through into, well, having gone that out with Lakeside, now into Island Bend. And as he puts down the power there, Phil, I noticed that the inside right rear wheel decided to start spooling up. He put a little bit of a wonky 11 down there, didn't he, or a wonky 1, so to speak.
Definitely he did, yeah. A circuit that should favour the rear-wheel drive cars, and historically has done, but as we saw last season, the front-wheel drive cars were still in the mix. But Cameron has been impressive during his debut season in the series, and obviously, as we've said before, you cannot miss the Haas livery on the BMW 330. He's quite happily hustling that now down towards Lodge Corner, so coming down to complete the lap. You see a bit of brake lock there. Nice line through. He's caught the apex nicely, kept it off the dirt as well as he comes through Deer Leap. He's going to come and complete the lap now. Currently running in 12th place, and see if he can improve. And he moves up to 7th position. Nice lap there from Cameron Brewster.
So we've got just under 7 minutes of the session remaining. Ryan Elliott. Ryan Elliott has absolutely been manhandling this 2.26 mile circuit. And the current lap record is actually set in a Formula Renault 2.0 by current Formula E driver Tom Blomqvist. And these cars are pretty much the best part of just under 4 seconds off of the pace of what a Formula Renault 2.0 would have done back in 2010. Cameron Brewster decides to escape out of there, but Ryan Elliott with a 1 minute 22.451. Jordan Hearn.
Yeah.
Jordan Hearn, that was a big, proper Code Brown moment right there. Oof. Not exactly what you want. Thank goodness it's not in qualifying, because if it was in the race, Phil, I think there would be a completely different Code Brown happening right there and then. There
would, and I think the MG would need a very rapid facelift for the following race as well. But yeah, no, very lucky to keep that. And as you say, in qualifying, at least he's got another attempt to be able to go out and set a faster time and try and just recollect himself and settle back into a rhythm. Because once you've got the rhythm around Oulton, once you've figured it out as it goes wide through Cascades, so just a little bit too racy still maybe. Once you've got the rhythm and you're settled in, qualifying times do come thick and fast. And at the moment, Jordan's got a pretty good line through the island hairpin, so he's doing well there. He seems to have settled down a bit now. Currently 9/10 off in the first sector, so grabbing some time where he can and just getting back into that rhythm and then getting up to speed again. Once that's there, he should be able to get a better time sorted out. He's just got to make sure he doesn't do the same thing again on the way up to Druids, which we're coming up to Clay Hill now, and revisiting the scene of the incident, shall we say.
Yeah, quite a few penalties actually last time out at Thruxton. And I'll be completely honest, Max Spooner decided to have the book thrown at him, because what did he do? Well, according to the penalties that were given out, Max Spooner used mediums for the entire event, whereas Thruxton, you're actually meant to use the hard compound tyres, so got a complete let's just say the slate was wiped clean for Max Spooner because of one thing that he accidentally did wrong, which you don't do at Thruxton. There's the Team Atagani Phil Morby Ford Focus, which does like to get on two wheels and is pretty much, if you had Google Maps trying to get a picture of Oulton Park Island right now, going through Old Hall, you could definitely see that Phil Morby would be front line and centre with that livery, wouldn't he? Oh
yeah, you're not going to miss Phil in the Focus. Definitely an unmissable livery this time round. And again, he did pretty well last year, actually running in the Subaru during the first season event running at Oulton Park. So he's been pretty rapid in the Ford Focus. He was the last time we were with the guys at Brands Hatch. So yeah, Phil's definitely one to watch as he's adapting to the focus and making progress with it. He's just under 2/10 out on the first sector as he comes down the hill and towards the Knickerbrook chicane. So he's doing well so far. Nice line through the first part of the chicane, a little bit of curb. Yeah, he's doing quite well with this actually. This is looking quite a clean lap. And then we'll just make it through, like I say, out of Knickerbrook chicane, on the way up to Clay Hill. Coming up to Druids Corner, which Jordan's already had some fun with, so we'll see how Phil does as he guides the focus through. Looks pretty good, but he's lost actually quite a bit of time, so I don't know if he's backed off. Yeah, he's pulling over to the side, so he's backed off there and lost quite a bit of time in the second sector. So we're looking to reset it as Callum Wilson is almost sideways coming out of Hold Hall in the Wilson Racing BMW, which again, another sparkling livery, great work there. Locking the brakes a little coming into Cascades and then making his way down Lakeside, heading towards the Island Bend. Definitely not going to miss Callum's car. Again, we've got so many great liveries this year. You know, it's brilliant to see the artwork as he slides and locks up the brakes and goes wide. And tries to regain himself as he makes his way back over the hill and heads down towards Knickerbrook chicane.
So yellow out in sector 1 as Ryan Elliott's car was briefly disconnected from the server, but it has returned. Callum Wilson, well, that was a bit tetchy there going through the chicane, but he manages to keep the foot planted to the floor, so to speak, does Callum Wilson. Currently sitting in 7th position at the moment on a 1 minute 23.179. That puts him 0.728 off of Ryan Elliott. There's Matthew Churgwin, who really has had a lot of good consistency this season. He's only had a third back at round 3 at race 3 at Thruxton, and a second at race 3 at Donington Park. But he's had one no point score, which was back at race 2 at Silverstone, when he had that massive incident. But looking at the top of the timesheets, we've got Ryan Elliott, Chris Shepherd, Toby Davis, Dan Kell, Chris Butcher, the current championship leader, covered by just over 0.68 of a second as we head into the last 90 seconds of qualifying. Now, considering the fact that Chris Butcher again is coming into this, as Churgwin locks up, going through, and you can just see the amount of sideways action going through Deerleap and across the line for Churgwin. Chris Butcher again has just showcased how capable he is in that Vauxhall Astra. It's the same car that he used last year when Smile Power Racing and him took both respective the overall manufacturer's title and also the drivers' championship, whereas Ben Willis took the independence title in the drag racing Subaru Levorg last season. Chris Butcher has really again showed time and time, every time that he's got high ballast, he's able to make it work in qualifying. And to be P5 at a track that really, Phil, the highest placed rear wheel drive vehicle is in 7th, and that is Callum Wilson.
It is a switch for what you'd normally expect, especially as you say with Chris Butcher carrying so much weight, you know, max ballast for being championship leader. And Oulton Park is a circuit that doesn't reward those that are carrying high amounts of ballast either. Some circuits you can get away with it and do a pretty good job. So Chris being able to keep that in P5 at the moment during the last few seconds of qualifying, that is a cracking job. And if he's able to shed some of the rate in race 1, as we've seen before, he's able to, you know, bring the car back through in the later races during the evening to score the big points. So as the checker flag flies and we've got the last few laps being completed, we are still with an Epic Racing lockout with the two Hondas of Ryan Elliott and Chris Shepherd locking out the front row. Just see if anyone else is due to complete a time as we come to the end of the session. It's going to be interesting, like you say, you know, the rear-wheel drive cars are normally pretty good around Oulton, although there we see Chris Butcher sort of sideways through Druids and having a really big moment outside of Druids. So yeah, the weight definitely playing its game. But yeah, to see the BMW sort of P7, or P8 now as Scott Sovic goes up, you know, it's quite, that's not the normal form we'd expect. Maybe they'll come back through and you know, be able to show a surprising race pace maybe. As we're watching Luke Mitchell completing his lap, he's got 2 green sectors as he comes out of Lodge Corner through Deerleap to cross the line. Does he improve? No, he stays P5, so Stays where he is. Ed Straw.
Well, no. Look,
he's not.
He's set exactly the same lap time as Chris Butcher.
Ah.
On that last lap. Ed Straw remains in 20th position, but Ryan Elliott, you know what? The deadlock's been broken because Toby Davis on his last flying lap set the all-time best final sector of anybody, and he's broken the Epic Racing deadlock. So Ryan Elliott is your pole sitter for race 1 here at Oulton Park Island for round 5 of the Virtual Motorsport Online Touring Car UK Championship. Ahead of THR's Toby Davis, then it's Epic Racing's Chris Shepherd and Dan Kell from Zancho Simsport that will be on road 2. Luke Mitchell from King's Racing and THR's Chris Butcher ran at the top 6. Ahead of Cameron Brewster from Drake Racing, Ballas Esports Scott Sovic with Callum Wilson from Wilson Racing, and Team Atagani's Phil Morby running at the top 10. Row 6, it's Matthew Churgwin from Drake Racing and Zancho Simsports Lewis McGlade, who I hear is a little bit handy behind a commentary mic as well when he's not racing. Bobby Vakuinov and Jordan Hearn ran at the top 14 ahead of Ben Willis and James Lambert. Daniel Slattery with the Andrew Jordan Tribute Band Honda Civic starts 17th, alongside will be Cameron Hawes in the number 88 Vauxhall Astra. Running at the top 20, it's Harry Walshaw and Ed Straw, and then last but by no means least, Bradley Brockies from E-Team Brit White. So that's it for qualification. Ryan Elliott looking to hopefully become another driver that will win 3 races this season, but we're going to go to a brief commercial break here on the Virtual Motorsport Online Touring Car UK Championship here for round 5 of the season, the halfway point at Oulton Park Island in Cheshire.
To allow us to be able to compete on a level playing field, we've had to use existing technology to create a set of hand controls that allow us to race on a level playing field. So if you imagine you're going to chicane at 150 miles an hour, our disabled drivers have to be able to go through the chicane at the same speed as the able-bodied driver. That means braking, steering, gear down, on the throttle, off the throttle, on the brake. Now, if we keep losing half a second or a few tenths of a second at every chicane, we might be the best driver on the track, but we can't be competitive. So that was the criteria that I gave the engineers, that if we can't do that, then we can't go racing. Al Locke is he's the brains behind our team. He's our race engineer. I tell him what I want and how I want it. He says it's not possible, and I know it's possible because I believe in Al. The cost of the hand controls varies from about £5,000 to about £7,500. That's because we've managed to find a manufacturer in Slovenia that does all this specialist engineering. That allows fingertip control of every function of the car without any failures, so they can drive the mountains to their levels instead of competitive. None of this would be possible without Al's British engineering.
The main thing that inspires me to keep going with Team Brit is the quest for constant improvement. You know, we've developed a set of hand controls, and we're not a team that's going to rest on their laurels. We're constantly pushing for better and faster developments.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the continuing coverage of the Virtual Motorsport Online Touring Car UK Championship, being hosted by the fantastic Oulton Park Island Circuit. 2.26 miles, 3.6 kilometres, and with me once again is my very good friend, my partner in crime, a man that loves his touring cars as much as I do, Mr. Phil Kinch. Phil, qualifying, very, very good performance by the likes of Ryan Elliott, Toby Davis stealing the outside of what could have been a front row epic racing lockout in qualifying for round 5 of the season. Was a pretty good showing from the THR driver, wasn't it?
It was indeed. Cracking showing right at the last moment. Toby's managed to put it on the front row, and we know Toby is a really good driver as well. He didn't have too much luck last time we were racing here in season 1, so he should have some better luck this time. He's got a front row start. But the Epic Racing Hondas we've also seen earlier in the season are very, very good cars. Ryan Elliott and Chris Shepherd are able to put the cars at the front and able to defend from the more established outfits of the likes of Zancho, Simsport and Kings Racing, for example. So, yeah, qualifying I don't think tells the whole story, but definitely does make it look as though it's going to be good fun for race 1, especially when we're looking at the highest BMW on the grid, being in 7th place with Cameron Brewster. Again, a circuit you'd think would be rear-wheel drive friendly, doesn't seem to have been that friendly in qualifying.
No, exactly. And following on from the use of the hard compound tyre for all 3 races at Thruxton, unless your name's Max Spooner. Oh, sorry, did I say that out loud? Whoops. We've got drivers that have decided to go for the option tyres. So 7 of them will be going for that in race 1. Now, one of those drivers actually not showing on the server at the moment, which is Scott Mitchell. But Luke Mitchell, Ed Straw, Jordan Hearn, James Lambert, Chris Shepherd and Ryan Elliott will both get the pain out of the way with the option tyres, as well as Cameron Hawes in the Aspect Esports A Vauxhall Astra. Then the list is as follows, that will be using the option tyre in race 2. Chris Butcher, Toby Davis, Dan Kell, Lewis McGlade, Ben Willis, Cameron Brewster, Matthew Churgwin. Jack Nichols is earmarked to have that as well. John Waldridge, Bradley Brockies. Now, John Waldridge, I can't see on the list either here this evening. Also, Phil Morby and Callum Wilson. And then in race 3, well, Ross McGregor not showing on the server tonight, so he may be otherwise indisposed. Michael Tyler, also due to be racing this evening, not showing either. Max Spooner is absent this evening, so the only driver actually being here for E-Team Brit is the E-Team Brit number 68. It's the white. It's the part of the white crew, which James Lambert is running in the BMW. Daniel Slattery, the Norfolk Endpoints Racing Honda Civic, or as we like to call it, Phil, the Andrew Jordan Tribute Band.
Oh yes,
back with Pertec Racing when he won the title with that particular car as well. Bobby Vakuinov and Scott Sovic and Harry Walshaw will be running with the option tyre in round 3. We are just about 3 minutes away from the warm-up, but looking at the championship so far, Chris Butcher hasn't had it all his own way, and with the consistency of the likes of Zancho Simsports, Lewis McGlade and Dan Kell, I think Butcher knows that he's not had an easier ride like he did in season 1, but when he had two other teammates, one of which was Scott Sovic, Chris Butcher had a really good run at the title last year, but this year hasn't been as easy.
No, definitely not, and it's not too surprising to see, you know, the next two drivers after Chris Butcher being Lewis McGlade and Dan Kell from Zancho Simsport, which was a team that last year put teamwork to great effect, especially in the second half of the season when the points were more important and getting those championship places were vital. I am really impressed to see Matthew Churgwin in the top 4 again in the debut season. As you were saying earlier, while he's got that third place, he's scored highly, at Thruxton in the third race of the meeting. His consistency, he's been able to score points at every meeting apart from one. Apart from Silverstone race 2, and that's actually going in his favour. Toby Davis, again, top 5, but he's only 3 points behind Matthew. So again, consistency playing a part for those that aren't up front, scoring all the wins. Yeah,
and looking at Ben Willis, last season's independent champion, has taken a race victory this season. Donington Park, race 3 at the opening round of the season. Luke Mitchell's had a third place finish at race 2 at Donington. Jack Nichols has had a third place at Brands Hatch Indy round 2 and a win at the first race at Thruxton. Phil Morby is currently the driver that leads the independent standings, but by only 4 points ahead of Ballas Esports. Scott Sovic, running at the top 3, funnily enough, is Callum Wilson. Now, Callum Wilson, interestingly enough, Phil, might only be on 49 points, 20 adrift of Phil Morby, but he's only competed in 2 of the race evenings so far, Brands Hatch Indy and Silverstone, and he's scored no lower than 6 points in any of the races so far, so a little bit of consistency has gone his way. But obviously now he's got to start putting in the hard work. And if he can really capitalise and get one up on Scott Sovic and also Phil Morby, both in very different machinery. You know, Scott Sovic was running in the Astra last season. He's now switched to the Lavorg. And, Phil Morby's done a bit of a similar swap. He's gone from a Subaru Lavorg to the Ford Focus, and the Ford Focus was very, very capable in season 1, and it's still just as strong in this season as well.
It is. It's a car of choice. It is a very, very adaptable car to use. Whilst the Subaru seems to have gone backwards slightly, like I say, it was quite a popular choice in the first season, and definitely quite a few drivers putting it to good use. Even with max weight on board, which proved the adaptability of the Lavorg being rear-wheel drive and carrying the weight well. As you say, with the independence battle, going back to that, obviously with Phil Morby leading it and Scott Sovic in second place, Callum Wilson just needs to maintain that consistency and get some good points, possibly this evening, as he's the highest placed BMW on the grid so far. All he's got to do is just keep out of trouble, which isn't always easy, we know, in touring car racing. And if he can keep the paddles clean and get some good scores, then that battle could tighten up quite nicely over the course of this evening, and then heading into Croft in a couple of weeks' time as well.
So a total of 3 races this evening, 15 laps per race. So we'll have the total of just over 101 miles of VMO TCUK touring car action here tonight in Little Budworth in Cheshire. A fantastic circuit. I know that they've got the we got the warm-up session out of the way, and we are very shortly waiting to see the drivers when they will be on their formation lap ahead of 15 laps, and it's going to be Honda versus FK2 Honda Civic versus current generation Vauxhall Astra on the front row, as it looks like things are going to be starting. So let's see if we can go trackside to the start finish line here at Oulton Park Island Circuit. 2.26 miles, 3.6 kilometers in length, a very shortened version of the international circuit. So let's have a look at the starting order. Ryan Elliott and Toby Davis, that's Honda versus Vauxhall on the front row, and then it is Honda versus Ford on row 2. Chris Shepherd and Dan Kell completing the top 4. Then it's 2 Astras for row 3. It's Luke Mitchell and Toby Davis and Chris Butcher, as Toby Davis seems to have gone wayward a little bit, exit stage right on the formation lap. Then it's Cameron Brewster in the leading rear-wheel drive vehicle, ahead of Scott Sovic in the Subaru Lavore. Callum Wilson and Phil Morby, that's row number 5. Row 6 is Matthew Churgwin versus Lewis McGlade, Bobby Vakuinov and then Jordan Hearn. That's Honda versus MG. Row 8, it's James Lambert from E-Team, Britt White in the BMW, and then Daniel Slattery in the Norfolk Endpoints Racing Honda Civic. Cameron Hawes, Harry Walshaw, Ed Straw, Bradley Brockes and Ben Willis, rounding out the 21 strong touring cars that now will head their way to the start finish line. And they're just coming through Clay Hill and through into the water tower, one of the faster parts on the circuit, and they'll be at full chat. They won't lift at this point at the circuit, will they, Phil?
No, not at all. No, not. It's just take as much speed into Druids as they can out of making their way up Clay Hill, and it's hang on to the wheel, turn it to the right, make sure you get the apex, and then carry as much speed as you can down towards Lodge Corner, where they're heading to now, which is one of the more popular overtaking spots on the circuit, and definitely one I think we're going to see quite a bit of action. It's also going to be interesting to see the first turn into Old Hall. Quite a few lines you can take in there off the grid on the first lap, so yeah, we're going to be in for a fun race.
We are indeed, as drivers now make their final preparations, some weaving from side to side like Toby Davis or Ryan Elliott when they're accelerating, then hard on the brakes to get some temperature in the tyres through the alloy wheel and the brake systems on the cars, as Elliott now gets into his position. Toby Davis now gets into place. The picture-in-picture, you see Cameron Hawes in the Aspect Esports A Vauxhall Astra lining up 17th on the grid. 15 laps of race 1 out of 3 here at Oulton Park Island. It's Elliott versus Davis on the front row, as we wait with bated breath and when the green flag is waved. So the revs are rising, and the green flag waves, and this is a good start by Ryan Elliott. And Toby Davis tries to pull alongside as they head down towards Old Hall for the first time. Dan Keller's made his way up into 3rd position ahead of Chris Shepherd. Chris Butcher running out the top 5, but it's Elliott leading the way down the hill through Dentons, through the avenue, down into the right, the left-hander here at Cascades for the first time of asking. A little bit of a run wide coming through the apex from Davis and Kell, but the Ford Focus looks really, really racy. But Elliott keeping ahead for the moment, as Cameron Hawes in the picture-in-picture has dropped a couple of positions, as it looks like Luke Mitchell has got himself side by side coming out of the island hairpin alongside Chris Butcher. This is going to be rather nip and tuck as they're going to go through downhill top into Knickerbrook, and it's going to be rather nip and tuck between the pair of them. And oh, that's a great little bit of manoeuvring by Luke Mitchell, who gets ahead of Chris Butcher as they make their way through into now going to head to Clay Hill and Water Tower. But that was a great start from Ryan Elliott, and Luke Mitchell already starting to close in on Chris Shepherd for 4th place.
Definitely looking racy from Luke Mitchell. As further back we can see Callum Wilson being pursued by Bobby Vakuinov in the blue Honda FK2. So already the pack racing going on as Dan Kell, all there's contact there between Chris Shepherd and Luke Mitchell, so that's not done. In fact, it looks like Toby Davis has also caught the ball and has had some contact as well coming out of Deer Leap and down the start finish straight as we head into turn 1. So it's Ryan Elliott now leading from Dan Kell and Luke Mitchell up to 3rd. And Kelly's not hanging around. He's already pushing Brian Elliott for the lead as they head into Cascades and start the run down towards Lakeside.
Well, it's already kicked off, and Ryan Elliott runs a little bit wide because of the pressure, courtesy of Dan Kell from Zancho Simsport, who looks to the outside to get the cut through. A lock up from Elliott going through into the hairpin, and Kell looks to have got the switchback. The Focus really hooks it up, coming out of the hairpin as they go through into Hilltop, down into the dip, through into Knickerbrook. Luke Mitchell has got the ringside seat. He's about 8 tenths behind, but he's got Chris Shepherd to his outside, and the Vauxhall Astra keeps ahead. There is a yellow in sector 1, so someone has been off the circuit. But we're on to lap number 3 out of 15. Ryan Elliott really being put under the kibosh by Dan Kell as they're making their way through. We're just going to have a look at a replay here. Now, that was a shove and a half from Toby Davis, but look what's going to happen here. He gets turned around and into the fence. Yeah. And then all of a sudden he gets mugged. Does Toby Davis. That's going to be one that's going to needs to be left to race control there, I think, Phil. Yeah,
it is definitely a bit of hip and shoulder there coming out of the last turn and putting into the wall. Unfortunately, it did look as though Davis had a bit of assistance, but we'll leave the stewards to attend as Dan Kell sets the fastest lap at a 1 minute 23.967, scarpering away. Well, I'd say scarpering away. He's ahead of Ryan Elliott now, as we can see Cameron Brewster hunting down Toby Davis, who himself is on a bit of a comeback drive, but already has gone wide out of Cascades, and that's going to give Brewster the momentum as they come down to the hairpin. Brewster on the outside to see if he can take it as Phil Morby tries to capitalise on this. Morby staying on the inside of Brewster, so that's keeping him out wide, and still the pair side by side as they come down the hill, heading towards Knickerbrook. Although Brewster looks as though he's got it ahead, it's going to be the last of the late breakers. This could get a little bit messy.
Oh, and it does get a bit messy. You were absolutely spot on Cameron Brewster, straight into the stack there, and that stops him literally dead right there. Ed Straw is in the pits. Cameron Brewster finds himself right at the tail end, Charlie, of the field, as Luke Mitchell now being hunted down by Chris Shepherd. And Luke Mitchell is the King's Racing meat in an epic racing sandwich right about now. But Dan Kell has gotten away, and he's gotten away to a very, very good lead at the moment, just under 9 tenths. I think that's just over a second as these three battling over second, third and fourth go through Deer Leap. It's Elliott versus Mitchell versus Shepherd. Chris Butcher not too far behind. You can see the THR car in the distance. New fastest lap of the race from Dan Keller, 1 minute 23.324. So we're going to go to a replay here. Now this is Scott Sovic. You've got James Lambert there. There's Toby Davis, and Scott Sovic decides to go rally crossing in the Subaru. Oh, this isn't going to end out. Oh, he's just absolutely gone into the side of both. Toby Davis and James Lambert has hit the wall hard on the BMW. I think that car won't be going any further. And then look, just behind, look, there's going to be more dramas. And there's one of the drag racing cars. So it looks like Hearn's got involved, Wilson's been involved, and Davis again off the track as Mitchell and Shepherd side by side going through into the island hairpin. But no, that's actually through into Knickerbrook, and that was close between the pair. But look, that was very close. They haven't really touched door panels that much, but Shepherd nearly goes doing a Night Rider. That's a bit of ski mode work there in the Vauxhall, in the Honda Civic there, and that allows Chris Butcher, who's going to plant it around the outside of Luke Mitchell. Chris Butcher, exemplary work there from the #1 seed, and he makes it through back up into 4th position.
Nice clean racing from both Mitchell and Shepherd, but as we've seen, Butcher isn't slow on the uptake, and he's taken on to 4th position, and especially when you consider, as we said already, he's got that championship leading weight ballast on board as well. So whilst you've got Kell and Elliott out front leading the way, as Elliott now sets the new fastest lap, so he's in pursuit of the Sancho Simsport Focus driver, as once again Toby Davis is off sideways after Lodge Corner, so there's more contact as Ed Straw comes past in the independent King's Racing entry, and that's Bradley Brockies, it looks as though, has decided to pit in with some issues.
Yes indeed, yes indeed. So lap 5 out of 15 completed. We're on to lap 5 out of 15, and effectively you can now see that, well, Toby Davis, unfortunately, the amount of drama that Vauxhall Astra has had, it's meant that he's had to have a DNF, unfortunately. So, yeah, Toby Davis out of the race, and everyone else is now trying to fight between themselves with regards to the scraps on the table. So, but Lewis McGlade trying to close in on what is now 4th position. He's just behind, that is Phil Morby just up ahead. So Lewis McGlade just trying to make it consistent. The number 78 Sancho Simsport car, trying to do his level best to get through. And he might get a good run here. Oh, it looks to be the case. McGlade's got the inside line. Morby trying to keep it pinned to the outside. They're going to go through, and it's side by side between the two Ford Focuses. McGlade trying to get the run going through Dearleap, but on this particular occasion, Morby pulls ahead as they got the run down to Old Hall at this particular moment. So McGlade has to do it all again.
Great racing between Morby and McGlade there as well. No contact, side by side. Phil Morby's given plenty of room to Lewis McGlade as he's trying to take the inside and defend his line, which is great to see. And again, both drivers experienced. They were here in season 1, doing very well. As we see McGlade now looking at the inside on the run to the island hairpin. Morby brakes late. There's a bit of a lock of tyres there. He keeps the inside line through the hairpin, and McGlade isn't able to capitalise. But you've also got two guys that are on equal machinery. They're both in Ford Focuses. Both know what the car is capable of, and they've been successful in this previously during the season. So it is good to see nice, clean racing in one aspect between these two to show it can be done. As McGlade follows Morby through Knickerbrook Chicane, they start to head up Clay Hill, and they're heading towards Drury's Corner, which so far this evening through qualifying and the first part of race 1 has definitely shown quite a bit of action. But Morby's managed to pull a small amount of a gap, maybe a couple of tenths there, over McGlade as they head towards Lodge Corner and Dearleap to go and complete the lap.
Yeah, so effectively this is going to be a case where these drivers will have to push like crazy, and we are seeing that right now. So Chris Shepherd this time has put in the fastest lap of anybody, and it is going to be a 1 minute 23.012. That's come from the number 3 placed car, and that is so there's been a bit of a moment there, and that is for the Aspects Esport A 88 car from Callum Hawes, who's just lost out big time, and that has allowed Matthew Churgwin from Drake Racing to get through. And then there's the other 2 Drake Racing cars just behind. Looks like there has been more dramas for Hawes as he's gone a bit wide. So he's got Ben Willis, who started right from the back of the field, and there is Cameron Brewster in 14th. So the the Vauxhall being swamped by the BMWs at this particular moment in time.
Mass ranks of the Drake Racing BMWs haunting, unfortunately, for Cameron Hawes as he tries to hold on. It's good to see them all in contact with each other and working together. But again, good clean racing taking place here. Hawes' first event that he's taking part in this evening. So definitely learning as he pilots the Vauxhall Astra. A good car to have in the series, as we've seen before, reliable car to have. The new BMW isn't one to be knocked either, as we've seen previously. So he's definitely getting the hurry up from Ben Willis as the two of them come through Lodge line astern. Hawes goes to defend into Lodge Corner, and Ben Willis is on the outside. Now they're going to hold. There's a slight bit of contact there as Hawes stays in front, and Willis loses out just to Cameron Brewster there. And then we also see Callum Wilson getting on the act. It's the 3 BMWs with Daniel Slattery in the Andy Jordan Special also closing up. These 5 providing quite a bit of racing as they go slightly wide out of Old Hall. There's contact again between Wilson and White and Ben Willis, sorry, as Hawes manages to stay in front. In the meantime, we've got Cameron Brewster, who's managed to stay out of the way and get in front. Back at the front of the race, Dan Kell has company in the form of Ryan Elliott and Chris Shepherd. This is on.
So a 3-way scrap that, depending on how quickly Chris Butcher is able to close in. Now I'm looking at the lap times here, Phil. Chris Butcher, his best lap is a 1 minute 23.7. That is effectively 8 tenths off of Chris Shepherd. So there's a bit of a differential here between the number 1 car in THR and the 3 up at the front of the field. And Dan Kell trying to be the quickest out of the 3, but it's very much not the case, as Chris Shepherd is the fastest driver out there. He's just gone under the 1 minute 23 bracket as we go back on board with Dan Kell, who's hanging on for dear life. Ryan Elliott is closing in on him and was nearly a tenth of a second quicker. This is going to be very nip and tuck as Elliott goes up the inside. That is through Cascades. and he's just about to make it through if he can, but it's going to be the run down to the island hairpin very, very shortly, and a lock-up, massive lock-up from Kell to try and block Elliott, and he's got that done. This could open the door for Shepherd if Elliott's not very careful. I'm going to go down through into Knickerbrick. 2 wheels on the grass from Elliott. That's brave into the chicane. He's trying to get it controlled under the brakes, and he's going to have a real bit of a tangle. That was the slight bit of rubbings racing there, but Dan Kell held on to that one. Ben Willis from Drake Racing, in the meantime, has ended up off onto the grass. And Dan Kell has got a bit of a daylight at the end of the tunnel, as the yellow in Sector 1 was because of Ben Willis, who's now dropped outside of the top 15. But the battle for the lead quite clearly still on, as the leaders now make their way through and onto the replay here. Oh, now this is why Ben Willis ended up off track, because Cameron Hawes lost it going through Cascades, and it just tagged the right rear, and all of a sudden Slattery did a good job to just avoid that one right there.
That was very well done. As we see now the fight for the lead, so Elliott going for Kell on the inside of Old Hall. Kell's been pushed wide over the curbing onto the grass. They're still side by side as they run through Denton's, and Elliott is trying to stay in front. They're still side by side through Cascades. Extremely brave stuff from these two drivers, as Chris Shepherd stands by to see if he can benefit from any of this. Looks as though Elliott's got the pace through, as he's managed to get past Kell. Slight bit of contact between Shepherd and Kell there, and a bit more as they contact into the hairpin. The Honda's definitely trying to work together to see if they can hold back the Ford Focus, and at the moment it's job done. You've got Ryan Elliott in the lead, just ahead of his teammate Chris Shepherd, and the two Epic Racing Hondas have managed to depose the Sancho Simsport Ford Focus down into 3rd place, although Kell hasn't given up, and as we know well before, Dan Kell doesn't give up easily. He will fight back. We've still got 5 laps left of this particular race, and the front 3 are going hammer and tongs as we come through into Druid's Corner. A bit of a 3rd wheel lock there from Chris Shepherd, as the wheel clocks itself high. Not too difficult to do really, as the corner's so wide with the camber. Heading into Lodge Corner now to complete the lap, and again Elliott stays ahead of Shepherd. Lovely on board there. Thank you to our producer Mike for our wonderful shots we're having this evening already, as we can see Dan Kell from the view poking out to see if he can try and find a way past Chris Shepherd, as all 3 cars go through Old Hall for the 11th time of asking. Kell going wide on the curbing on the outside as they head their way through Denton's and now make their way to Cascades, as further back we've got Bradley Brocky and James Lambert fighting over 17th place.
Yes, indeed, as we are fast getting towards the end of the race itself, and the battle for the lead still very much on. Now I know for a fact that, well, Brocky's has actually just inadvertently DNF'd himself, so we're down to effectively 18 drivers out of the 21 that started this race. So at the moment it's Elliott leading from Shepherd, Kell from Butcher, Mitchell in 5th. Looks like Lewis McGlade is trying to close in on Luke Mitchell, but with the ballast that the Focus has currently got on it, it's about 0.2 of a second slower in terms of pure lap time. Phil Morby, Bobby Vakuinoff, Scott Sobick, Jordan Hearn rounding out the top 10 positions. There's a bit of grass tracking for Ryan Elliott there in the lead of the race, and Chris Shepherd right on the 66 back bumper, and that's going to go through into Deerleap. And once again we're going to go on to another lap here, and I think what Dan Kell really needs to do is exercise a little bit of a damage limitation, a bit of strategy call here as they go through into Old Hall. He's got the ringside seat here, Phil, and if something happens between Elliott and Shepherd, or one of them decides to serve themselves their own curveball, it can happen, can't it?
Oh, it can, and Dan Kell is definitely one of the drivers there that will capitalise on any small mistake, as we see Ryan Elliott going wide again at Cascades as they make the run down Lakeside towards the hairpin. The Hondas are pulling a small gap, but again, Dan Kell is experienced in this. He knows how to play the game. He's happily tracking the Hondas at the moment as they come out of the hairpin and make their way over the hill. He'll be looking at the lines they're taking. He'll be seeing where his own position is with regards to the tyres, how much grip he's got, as we're now into the last 3 laps of the race itself. So, you know, this is by no means over. Sometimes drivers will take a breather, take a couple of places back, you know, give themselves a gap, let the car cool a bit, and then go back on the counter attack again. So Kell having this small gap for now definitely means he's not out of the game. He's just waiting to see when he can strike again as Shepherd goes wide once more through Druids, and that gives Kell a little bit more of ground to gain as they head now towards Lodge Corner, with Elliott definitely now gapping his teammate by a few car lengths, and Kell closing on Shepherd for second place.
So Shepherd has been left behind by his teammate, and Ryan Elliott looking to pick up his third victory of the season as Dan Kell goes a bit wide. That was a bit of a moment there for the number 89 from Zancho Simsport coming out of Old Hall as they make their way through into Cascades. But Kell could have an opportunity at second in the dying moments of the race. We've had 3 retirements so far. So Bradley Brocky's on lap 8. Lap 3 it was Toby Davis and Harry Walshaw. So a lot of people still circulating. Ed Straw has been in the pits according to the timing for a very, very long time indeed, but I would imagine that he's probably circulating on the track itself. It does sometimes happen like that. But Lambert is a lap down, Straw is 4 laps down. And we've got Cameron Hawes, who had that unfortunate tangling with Ben Willis earlier on in the race, finding himself in 16th position and is currently on his 12th lap. Had another yellow in sector number 1. That would be, not too sure who that was from, but the leaders now come across the line. So 2 more to go as we head on to lap 14 out of 15. Shepherd now closing again on Elliott, and on that particular occasion, well, Shepherd was nearly 0.3 of a second quicker than Elliott, who has been leading. A bit of a lock-up going through into Cascades on by Shepherd on that particular occasion, but it still kept him within 3.5 of the race leader. Now the thing is, Phil, do you think there's any team orders with these two?
It doesn't look as though there is, you know. I'm just thinking they're a little bit too racy for my liking for team orders. I think Shepherd and Elliott are going for it till the end, to be honest, which is why you're seeing Dan Kell just back off a little bit now, I believe, and just giving himself a gap. So should something go horrifically wrong between the two Epic Racing Hondas, he will be there to benefit. But yes, Shepherd is definitely looking racy. He's definitely pushing Elliott. I fear we could be in for a repeat of Oulton Park 2011, a la Matt Neal and Gordon Shedden taking themselves out of the last corner on the last lap of the race. I really hope not. But yeah, these guys are definitely looking racy. You know, Elliott, is defending hard. In fact, I think harder than he should have to. With Shepherd definitely pushing him hard as they come through Lodge Corner, through Deer Leap, and begin the final lap of the race. Let's just hope these two keep it clean and don't have a reversal of fortune by their own luck.
Yeah, so into Old Hall for the final time of asking. Lap 15 out of 15. Shepherd's run wide. So does Dan Kell, who's kept himself in 3rd position. This will help Dan Kell no end as Shepherd again poked his nose up the inside of Ryan Elliott, who went a little bit wider going through Cascades as they make their way up towards the island hairpin for the 15th and final time, having negotiated their way through Lakeside. Shepherd runs wide. That's going to cost him any opportunity that he would have thought he would have had in going for the race victory, but through into Knickerbrook and then through the chicane for the final time. Ryan Elliott, has kept himself out of harm's way, and Chris Shepherd has gotten close, but not close enough. It could be very close here going through Clay Hill and into the water tower. 2 more corners to go after this one. Struid's up next, and Shepherd is there with Elliott through towards Lodge Corner. Under the bridge they go. Shepherd was looking to the right and then has gone to the left through into Lodge Corner. Now the run through Dearly. Will Shepherd get the run on Elliott? No, Shepherd goes rally crossing, and it's going to be Elliott that takes the win at race number 1 here at Oulton Park Island. Shepherd makes it an Epic Racing 1-2. Dan Kell rounds out the top 3. Fourth is Chris Butcher. Luke Mitchell takes P5 ahead of Lewis McGlade. Phil Morby in 7th. Bobby Vakuinov, Scott Sovic, Cameron Brewster, Jordan Hearn, Matthew Churgwin. Here comes Daniel Slattery in the Andrew Jordan tribute band. Honda Civic. He'll cross the line in 13th ahead of Callum Wilson. Ben Willis will take 15th, with James Lambert being the last of the classified finishers down in 16th position. And there is the BMW as he comes through dearly for the final time, crosses the line, and that really ends up rounding out the race. Cameron Hawes unfortunately retiring on lap 12. Bradley Brockies and Ed Straw lap 8. Toby Davis and Harry Walshaw both on lap 3. But Ryan Elliott becomes another race winner, and with that becomes one of 2 drivers that now has secured 3 race victories, joining Chris Butcher. So that's 8 different winners from 13 different races so far. Phil, that was a very interesting dynamic between Chris Shepherd and Ryan Elliott, who started to pull away from Dan Kell in the latter stages.
Definitely. I mean, again, the Hondas, as they proved at Brands Hatch when we last saw them in action ourselves, they are to be reckoned with. Again, I feel, maybe it should have been calmed down a little bit a couple of laps from the end, as it was quite clear that they had a decent gap over Kell of just over a second and could have definitely made sure they brought it home in one piece. But as you could see, the last couple of laps, Shepherd was pushing Elliott. They were pushing each other for hard for the win, and I wouldn't be far off saying that if Elliott had made a mistake, I wouldn't be surprised if Shepherd had had a go, put my teeth in gear, and gone for the win. So we'll definitely see how they go for race 2, where again it's both of them on the front row, but we've got the likes of Dan Kell and Chris Butcher for row 2. So that's going to be incredibly interesting. Butcher, started 5th and finished in 4th, so he's done everything he can to maintain and get the points in whilst carrying that max ballast. He's still in there.
Well, with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to a commercial break here on the Virtual Motorsport Online Touring Car UK Championship as we await race 2 out of 3 here at Oulton Park Island in Cheshire this evening.
We've all been to points in our life where we could have given up and just settled for what we had, but we've all got the attitude of never give up, because you never know what's going to come up next.
It's more than just driving now, it's more than just getting to the finishing line first. There's a bigger thing happening at Team Brit.
Laying in bed in Queen Elizabeth Hospital with both legs missing, I never would have thought I'd have been doing anything like this.
Your life's on the edge pretty much. Whether you're out on patrol or you're in the car, it's still going to hurt if it goes wrong. So it's what you live for, it's what I love.
So if you've got a choice now, it says that you can be a passenger the rest of your life, or you can get the driver's seat of your life and take your life where you want to take it.
Motorsport simply isn't for everyone. To many, driving cars around a track lap after lap may seem like a very expensive waste of time. But for those who are passionate about the sport, racing is far more than that. It's the pursuit of speed, the breaking of boundaries, and the teamwork that make it so engaging. And for the drivers at Team Brit, racing is genuinely life-changing. Most of them are injured military veterans who are using it as a tool for rehabilitation and recovery. The team uses specially adapted hand controls to accommodate various disabilities. Out on track, the drivers can then push themselves physically while recovering mentally. It's already come a long way, and is en route to climb the racing ranks even further, hoping to normalise disability in motorsport. This is the story of Team Brit. After finishing its first full season racing VW Fun Cup cars, the team is now putting the hours in during the off-season. It's hosting one of its rookie days, a chance to introduce new disabled drivers to the sport and to give existing drivers more time behind the wheel. Ash Hall is one of the latest additions to the team.
Yeah, it's been hard and fast, and the learning curve's been pretty steep. It's a bit of a shock to the system, to say the least, but it's well worth it.
He served in the Royal Engineers for a decade and was injured in Afghanistan in 2010, losing both his legs after stepping on an improvised explosive device.
And the last thing I remember was my head was clamped between the doc's legs. I had both arms out and people trying to get IVs into my arms. And the last thing I remember was just this big ass needle come straight over my chest, right into my sternum, and then that was it. Like a switch, I was out. And nothing, absolutely nothing, till 9 days later when I'm halfway around the world in a hospital.
He's now competed for Team Brit, but he's been reminded that, in racing, you never really know what the next corner will bring.
It was a track day rather than a test session, so there were other cars on and drivers on there of all abilities. Going into Cersei's like that at Brands Hatch, it's going flat out. There's not a lot of room, not a lot of space to brake, and it was in the mid of a turn. Ended up losing the back end of it, and once it hits wet grass, and it's just straight off. You lose pretty much all control of it. You just got to hammer the brakes and hope you come to a stop, and I did, but it took hitting the wall to stop the car. That was a bit of a shock. That was upsetting as well. Like, obviously, the thing about endurance racing is you share the car. So if I go messing up the car, then not only does it affect me, but then it also affects the rest of my teammates. You know, everyone's travelled from all over the country to get to that one place, and when you go being a bit overzealous like that and messing it up for everyone, it's puts a downer on the team, but I mean, it's something we've got to get used to because we have got to work as a team.
Into the new year and a new car for the team, and with it, new challenges. Motorsport offers a unique opportunity for the team to race against other drivers on an equal playing field, and this is made possible by complex hand controls, which the team are setting up today.
Then we went on to the hand control system, just calibrating the brake here and the throttle here. And we're now setting up the gear change, so it allow the driver to brake on this side and change down on this side, or accelerate on this side and change up on that side, or just to configure it for different levels of disability.
The step up from VW Fun Cup cars to GT machinery is a big one for the team, and that's one of the reasons why a former driver has returned to the squad. Martin Compton had been part of the original driver lineup when the team was formed in 2015, but has since taken time out to undergo further surgery after he sustained life-changing injuries when his patrol was ambushed in Afghanistan.
They detonated an IED, improvised explosive device, which blew the wagon in half, and unfortunately killing the 3 guys in it. And at that point I obviously couldn't go anywhere, and they then shot rocket grenades at me, which blew the engine up and engulfed me in flames. And somehow I managed to get out of that, and getting into cover I was then shot twice in the leg as well. The hardest thing from being in hospital to then leaving was looking in the mirror, feeling the same person inside, but actually obviously looking completely different. And that was the hardest bit.
While over 500 hours of operations have healed Martin physically, it's been racing that has helped him to recover mentally.
Yeah, I got diagnosed with PTSD, and for me, racing's always given me that focus and the adrenaline and the teamwork that I was missing. People that know me obviously knew where I was in 2010, and to where I am now is completely different. So it is because of racing and the focus that I've got from it.
One of the things I never really expected or even thought about was the psychological benefits of motorsport and the impact that it has. The fact that the benefits of motorsport are greater on people with mental health issues than the guys with the physical injuries. You know, people with depression and PTSD and stuff. Is that, you know, you're down, and all you spend most of your day thinking about negative stuff. You're down, you can't seem to snap out of it. But if we say we got a race on Saturday, and it's Monday, and now you're thinking, oh, I've got a race on Saturday. It's like a kid waiting for Christmas.
For Warren McKinley in particular, racing has had a substantial impact on his mental health. He had a motorbike accident while serving as a recovery mechanic in 2005, leaving him with a traumatic brain injury. He was later diagnosed with Cotard syndrome, also known as walking corpse syndrome, a rare
Right, well, we are back and not too long away before we get underway with race 2 out of 3 here for the VMO Touring Car UK Championship. Round 5 of the season, the halfway point. Alex Goldschmidt and Phil Kinshaw, commentators for this evening. Phil, not long until we go racing for race 2, but it's been an interesting evening thus far, hasn't it?
It has, definitely. We've been really lucky with the first race was quite exciting, and also showed we had some various incidents on track as well as some good close racing, and it was nice to see between the drivers when they were racing side by side. We had a few that were able to do that cleanly and give space, such as Lewis McGlade and Phil Morby, who were able to work side by side and keep the racing clean. We've had some incidents obviously in race 1, which I dare say would have been looked at, and the drivers will be cooling down from those and looking to see how they can improve for race 2. And again, race 2 starts with the finishing order of race 1, so we're going to have a rather interesting race with the Epic Racing Hondas at the top on the front row, along with Dan Kell and championship leader Chris Butcher. This is definitely going to be a very interesting race to see how this one pans out.
Yeah, so we'll have another 15 laps of this 2.26 mile circuit. Air temperature 23 degrees. Track temperature 27, and it is dry. There is not a cloud in the sky, and we will have a very enthralling second race of this as well. One more race to go after that one. We do have quite a few drivers. The option tyre here could pay dividends for some of the drivers. I mean, we saw that Luke Mitchell used it to good effectiveness. Chris Shepherd and Ryan Elliott, I think now they're going to start hurting a little bit, because once you put them on the prime tyres, Phil, it's going to be interesting when you look at who has gone on the options. So all 3 drag racing cars, both Sancho Simsports, both THRs. I think that Epic Racing could be at a bit of a loss here.
Definitely, it does look as though the higher track temperature does seem to be working in the favour of those that are running the option tyres. So yeah, definitely, I feel the Epic Racing Hondas could have a fight on their hands. If they can get a good start, that's fine. But they were also quite racy together in race 1 as well, so I do wonder if that could possibly come into play as well. But the option tyre does seem to be the one to have, and we've got quite a few drivers in race 2, as you said, front running drivers at that, also using these tyres. So strategy definitely coming into play with championship weights, with tyre choices, and also seeing if they can tweak the car setup to try and improve it after the information they gained from that first race.
Okay, well, let's see if we can head trackside and get things going for race 2 out of 3 for the halfway point of the season. So Ryan Elliott took the win in race 1. Will it be the same in race 2? We're going to find out after 15 laps of racing. So it's Elliott versus Shepherd on the front row. 2 Honda Civics, Dan Kell and Chris Butcher. Row number 2. Row 3, it is Luke Mitchell and Lewis McGlade. Then we've got Phil Morby and Bobby Vakuinov running at the top 8. Running out the top 10, it's Scott Sovic and Cameron Brewster. Jordan Hearn, the Seoul Cadan Casual Apex car, in 11th, alongside will be Matthew Churgwin in the number 43 BMW 330i. And next up it's Daniel Slattery, Callum Wilson, Ben Willis, James Lambert, and it looks like we've got Bradley Brockies, Ed Straw and Toby Davies. I can't see either of the respective Astras and, well, the Astra and also the BMW of the Aspect T-Sports cars. So whether they haven't been able to rejoin the session, but we will see what happens over 15 laps of racing. Once again, it will be, so it's the front row lockout. It's one thing that we didn't quite see in qualifying here, Phil, that we could have seen Elliott versus Shepherd on the front row. Now we are going to see it for race 2.
And I think that's going to be a very exciting prospect to see, you know, how their starts are off the line, who can get into Old Hall first. I'm sticking with the racy aspect they showed in the last several laps of race 1, which I think is definitely going to come back for a repeat in race 2, and that's going to play into the hands of the likes of Dan Kell, Chris Butcher, and I would also add in Luke Mitchell and Lewis McGlade. You know, the top 4 cars behind the 2 Hondas are definitely going to be within a shout as we see them lining up on the grid. This is going to be an enthralling one.
So the drivers now make their way onto the starting grid. We now wait for them to get things going. So 15 laps of racing around this circuit. You can see picture in picture Toby Davis getting into his position on the grid. So when the green flags wave, they will be sent on their way around the circuit. So Elliott on pole, Shepherd alongside. And they're off and away, and a good start by Elliott once again as Kell gets squeezed ever so slightly by Shepherd, but then all of a sudden round the outside through Old Hall goes Chris Butcher. Bit of door panel banging there between the pair, but Chris Butcher could get the initial advantage as they go through into Cascades. Butcher has the inside line on Shepherd, Gates' second position, as Kell tries to put the pressure onto Elliott in the initial phases, as Toby Davis trying to keep himself out of harm's way, but his 2 wheels on the grass is the number 34 as Elliott and Kell battle away, but Butcher quickly coming into this fight as McGlade up the inside of Luke Mitchell through the island hairpin.
And as we said, definitely an exciting start as Kell looks to the inside at Knickerbrook. Could be an early move, but he holds back just to be on the safe side, we're halfway around lap 1 of the 15-lap races. Further back we see the drag racing BMWs getting involved in the action, as it looks as though Elliott's been pushed wide coming out of Knickerbrook. So Kell has a clear lead, with Chris Butcher going around the outside of the Honda, taking second place now as we head into the Druids for the first time of asking. And Kell already gapping out front, with Butcher in second place, a few of them going wide as they come out of Druids themselves, heading into Lodge Corner. And we can already see Lewis McGlade as well hassling Chris Shepherd for fourth place. Luke Mitchell and Phil Morby in close contact as well. So already we're seeing it could be that the tyre advantage that the likes of THR's Ancho Simsport have is paying dividends against the Epic Racing. And here's the contact we see. So contact between Kell and Shepherd. Elliott, coming out of Knickerbrook, which is what sent Elliott wide. And as we can see, he's down in third place, Shepherd in fourth, Lewis McGlade is in fifth ahead of Luke Mitchell, and Phil Morby is on the end of that train, making it a 5-car fight for third place. As further back we can see Cameron Brewster in the Drake Racing BMW, just ahead of his teammate, with Ben Willis and Daniel Slattery in close contention. Meanwhile, Scott Sovic is going around the outside. It looks as though of one of the Cameron Brewster, lost my tongue there, as we head back to the front, and we can see Phil Morby closing in on the back of Luke Mitchell in the Kings Racing Astra, staying in close touch with Lewis McGlade, who is pushing the two Epic Racing Hondas. So we're back with Matthew Churgwin here in the Drake Racing BMW. He's just behind Cameron Brewster, who's battling with Scott Sovic for 8th place. We just see as we go into Old Hall, Sovic on the outside, back for the battle for third place. So the Honda's staying together, but it is very clear that Lewis McGlade is definitely the faster car of the two, as Dan Kell sets the fastest lap of the race on a 1:23.651.
Yeah, Bobby vacuuming off, better keep his elbows in sharpish, because otherwise he might be pinged by race control, as Scott Sovic and Matthew Churgwin going through into Cascades. Sovic was looking a little bit sideways, but Churgwin looking to the left-hand side as it's all kicking off at the front of the field, because Dan Kell and Chris Butcher have bolted, and up the inside of Sovic goes Toby Davis, and there's more tangling. Davis again gets tangled with, and it's going to cause carnage behind Churgwin's stationary. Davis is now trying to get going again as Ed Straw and looks like James Lambert, and Churgwin's got a massive drama with that BMW. I'm not too sure if that's going to get going again. They all managed to start rejoining, but Dan Kell and Chris Butcher have literally bolted like a pair of cats that have been scalded by a hot roof. And Ryan Elliott now coming under fire from Lewis McGlade. Remember that Ryan Elliott will be running with quite a lot of ballast, and McGlade looking towards the outside. This is going through into Druids and now, well, into Lodge Corner and now into Deerleap. And this is bringing in Luke Mitchell back into the battle. Phil Morby from Team Atagani isn't too far behind, and Cameron Brewster has kept the nose of his BMW relatively clean in order to keep himself in the hunt for this, and he's currently in P8. We go on board very briefly on the roof camera for Phil Morby as the quartet here. Morby being led by Mitchell, McGlade and Elliott started on pole position. But Dan Kell from Sancho Simsport looks to hopefully become the third driver to pick up 3 wins, as there's a little bit of rubbings racing. Toby Davis, unfortunately, second DNF on the trot for the number 34 from THR. He won't be happy about that one. And to be honest with you, it was 3 abreast. Davis was on the outside, and it was push comes to shove there, Phil.
Yeah, it's unfortunately it's one of those corners. The island hairpin offers great overtaking, but the slightest touch and that's it, you're sitting around. It looks as though, I think from that move, that Scott Sovic knew he was in the wrong, hence why he backed off and sort of waited to see once Toby Davis was running again. So, but as you say, in the meantime, up front, Dan Kell and Chris Butcher have disappeared down the road. The pair of them just over 2 seconds ahead now of Chris Shepherd, with who's gapped himself ahead of his teammate Ryan Elliott, and behind Elliott we've got the close battle of Lewis McGlade, Luke Mitchell and Phil Morby, running in line astern. As we see contact between Elliott and McGlade, so McGlade looking for an inside line move, and there go the headlights to let him know he's not happy. McGlade trying the inside line move at Old Hall to get past the Honda, and that didn't work. Now that slowed the Honda down of Elliott a little. It's given him a bit of a gap and some breathing space. Meanwhile, back at the front, Butcher and Kell are going for hammer and tongs. They are separated by a gap here. It's not worth measuring between the pair of them. They are towed together as they head down to Knickerbrook chicane. Meanwhile, Luke Mitchell and Phil Morby are side by side. This could end in tears into Knickerbrook. We've seen this happen a few times with drivers where they're defending, but Morby stays ahead of Mitchell as meanwhile Cameron Brewster closes in on the fight for 6th place.
Yeah, and Brewster now has got the ringside seat, currently in 8th position in the Drag Racing BMW. And in all fairness, once again, the front-wheel drives seem to be ruling the roost, and the BMWs haven't really had the best running. Neither is the likes of Matthew Churgwin, who's also retired after that massive incident that caused dramas for both him and Toby Davis. Ed Straw from King's Dealer Racing, the independent driver, running in the same the same livery as what Andy Prio did back in the early 2000s. Being a fellow Guernseyman, but Cameron Bruce has got a real good run on Luke Mitchell going across the start-finish line, but the back end of the BMW steps out to the left-hand side. The traction not being there when Cameron Brewster needs it as they go through into Cascades once again, and it's not been easy. Up through Lakeside, Brewster looking to the left. Mitchell goes defensive, and they head into the hairpin once again. And Brewster trying to get a wider sort of turnaround so he can really put the power down coming through. He's got a good run going down through Hilltop and into the chicane before Knickerbrook. I would imagine that he's going to get a better run going through Druids and Lodge that will give the BMW the opportunity it needs to get through Dearly. But now looking through this particular occasion, through Knickerbrook, now up through into Clay Hill, through to Water Tower. Brewster's got a real good run, but Luke Mitchell making the rear haunches of that Vauxhall Astra as wide as humanly possible through into Druids. And Brewster's really got to keep Luke Mitchell under pressure through into Lodge Corner. And Mitchell makes it through. Brewster takes a tighter apex through into Deerleap. And they head across the line. So on to lap number 7 out of 15. Brewster trying to get the run. Has to come out of the dirty air, but it literally slows him down quite considerably. But Luke Mitchell runs wide coming out of Old Hall. This could give the opportunity down the avenue through into Denton's and through into Cascades, but on this particular occasion, Cameron Brewster has to do all the hard work once again because Luke Mitchell has kept that Vauxhall Astra very, very wide. But Brewster now looking towards the inside through Lakeside. Mitchell runs a little bit wide. That's opened the door for Brewster, who gets a really good switchback. The BMW lays down a few tyre marks from the rear axle, and Cameron Brewster, like that, has managed to get his way past Luke Mitchell.
And some cracking racing there from Brewster. Really impressive how he persevered over the course of those 2 laps to close down Mitchell and get past, while as further up the road we've had Lewis McGlade get past Ryan Elliott for 4th position. So whilst Kell and Butcher are up and away off the road, Shepherd is next in the sights of Lewis McGlade. Further back at the edge of the top 10 we've got Bobby backing off against Ben Willis, and Ben Willis is really pushing the back of the blue Honda Civic, making sure that he makes sure he knows he's there, with James Lambert in 12th position also in on this fight, and Callum Wilson not far behind either. So the BMWs, when they're working together in packs, are definitely working together well, but in this case you've got Bobby vacuuming off, not sort of doing the best he can to hold off these 3 BMWs, and then Daniel Slattery just closing in as at the back of the train Wilson gets a big tank slapper coming out of Old Hall and manages to gather it together.
Right, so let's have a look back at Lewis McGlade's overtake on Ryan Elliott. Now this is through Old Hall, and that's a bit of a perler there from Lewis McGlade, because Ryan Elliott ran wide. Now there might have been a little bit of a touch between the pair, but it was very, very minimal indeed. However, Lewis McGlade managed to make it through nice and cleanly through Old Hall. But then we go back to the battle between Bobby Vacuinov, Ben Willis, James Lambert. They're all squabbling for the same position on the tarmac. Through the chicane after Hilltop and through into Knickerbrook they go. Vacuinov's still able to do it. We're going to go actually on board with Lewis McGlade. So Elliott goes to the right to cut the door off. A little touch from behind, a little bit of Rubbings racing, unsettles the back end of the Honda, and that allows the Sancho Simsport Ford to get through. A very good little bit of strategy there, I might say, from Lewis McGlade, wouldn't you say there, Phil?
Definitely, yeah. Rubbings racing, as we say. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of contact between touring cars, and I think you'll find that maybe the right side of legal move, but definitely good racing there as McGlade makes his way one place further forward. And I think, as we said before, the tyre disadvantage for the two Epic Racing Hondas now definitely playing against them, whilst the softer tyre runners are starting to make hay up front.
So we're on to lap number 9 out of 15 here at Oulton Park Island Circuit. Callum Wilson running a little bit wider than anybody going through Cascades at the moment. He gets a good run on James Lambert in the E's. And now they're going to go up Hilltop as Vacuinov and again Willis side by side. Willis looks to have the inside run going through into the chicane, but will the BMW get through? Looks like Vacuinov is having to give him room, but Vacuinov very, very close there indeed. And oh, bit of a door check there from Ben Willis, but it looks like he's got the job done on Vacuinov. And there goes Wilson trying to go up the inside of Lambert, but can't get through.
No, Wilson definitely trying to make up on the ground that offered him just in front, and Wilson has been quite racy over the last couple of laps in the BMW. You see odds on even between the pair as they're both BMW drivers, but Wilson 2 wheels on the inside of the circuit as they head into Lodge Corner. Contact again, a bit of nose to the bumper pushing there as they go through go through Lodge. Go following on from there, they're going to cross the line and into lap number 10, and this is over by no means. So whilst Willis has got past Vacuinov, both Wilson and Lambert goes extremely wide actually out of Old Hall, which gives Wilson a bit of ground to make up, and there's plenty of lockups on the brakes as they head into Cascades, and now running down Lakeside and heading towards one of the prime overtaking areas on the circuit into the lakes, into the island hairpin. Big lock-up from Lambert there, which allows Wilson to close up. We've got Daniel Slattery in the background, who's also closing up on this battle of 4 different cars with BMWs and Hondas involved. So there could be a fifth car of the Daniel Slattery, Andrew Jordan livery car appearing in the ranks as well. Further up the road, we've now got Cameron Brewster, who is pursuing Phil Morby for 6th position. So it could be now we're seeing, in fact, Brewster trying to go around the inside of Druids. A very brave move. If he keeps the line where he is, but it looks as though it has, it could be that he'll have to go into Lodge Corner, but Morby has the gap, has the place to defend in front of him. A very, very brave move to try and overtake someone on the inside of Druids. It can be done, but with the off-camber nature of the corner, it can be very difficult as well. In the meantime, as we say, Shepherd, McGlade, Elliott, Morby and Brewster, all 5 cars battling for 3rd place onwards.
Yep, and Lewis McGlade trying to do his level best to defend against Ryan Elliott as they went through Cascades on that particular occasion. McGlade was actually the best part of just under 3/10 behind Shepherd on that particular occasion. As a bit of a lock up there. Elliott's opened the door and Morby's gone through. A little bit of a wing to panel check there from the Honda, and here comes Cameron Brewster. Elliott started on pole position, now finds himself towards the bottom part of the top 7 as Brewster will get the inside line through into the chicane, but for the very next part of it, Elliott runs Brewster wide and actually forces the door shut firmly in the BMW's front bumper direction. So a real good opportunistic move there from Cameron Brewster, but Ryan Elliott said, oh no sunshine, you got to do better than that.
That's it. If you're going to pass, you're going to do it the hard way, and every inch that you take in these cars, because the field being so equal in these cars themselves, is equally earned just as hard as we see Elliott, sorry, Honda's the right way round. As you see Elliott trying to hold off Brewster through Lodge Corner, and through Deer Leap and going wide. We're into the last 3 laps of the race, and again the Honda goes wide, as does Brewster. So tyres might be starting to be coming into play for those that haven't picked the options. And the Hondas, unfortunately, in this race, it does look as though, despite their front row start, they have just gone backwards. With Shepherd in 3rd place at the moment, 6 seconds behind leaders Kellen Butcher, and Elliott being hassled for 6th position by Cameron Brewster, who tries at the hairpin, isn't able to close in enough, and that gives Elliott a bit of breathing space as they go over the hill and down towards the Knickerbrook chicane once more. Elliott's got a little bit of gap between him and the BMW, so he can afford to take a pretty quick line. But Brewster on the second half of the lap, I've noticed, does seem to have the better speed. He gets the better drive out of the Knickerbrook chicane. He's right behind the Honda as they're going up to Clay Hill and making their way towards Druids. Now we know this is a very fast corner, and several of the guys have tried to attempt an overtake this evening. Brewster thinks better of it, but he stays in the slipstream of the Honda, and that gives him good momentum running out of Druids corner. Now Elliott defends going into the lodge. Oh, there's contact between the two actually. Brewster is definitely after the position here, and there was definitely some front bumper paint left on the back of the Honda as we come on to lap 13. And yeah, the game is definitely on, as up front we've got Chris Shepherd and Chris Shepherd and Lewis McGlade being fighting over the honours of the last podium position in the last 2 laps of the race, whilst Brewster hassles Elliott. Now he's going around the outside of Cascades. That's an incredibly brave move, but he's made it work. Now he's on the inside for the hairpin, and he's got the BMW ahead. Now all he's got to do is make sure he gets it on the brakes nice and easy, takes the tight inside line, forces Elliott to stay wide. Elliott's going to try and drive back in and take the tighter line, but it's not worked in the Honda, and a great bit of driving there from Cameron Brewster to take 6th position from erstwhile pole sitter Ryan Elliott.
Yeah, it was only a matter of time. It was not a case of if, it was a case of when. But looks like Lewis McGlade is employing the old Aidan Millward trick from season 1. Headlights are ablaze on the McGlade Ford Focus from Zancho Simsport. And the gap between Shepherd and McGlade is dropping significantly, and there it is. The gap is no more than probably about the best part of a car length. Lewis McGlade thinks he's Ken Block going wide, coming out of what was that, Druids, I think, if memory serves me correctly, and through into Lodge Corner, down through into Deer Leap. McGlade, if he gets a really, really good run, that was a good run there from the Ford Focus, across the stripe. 2 more laps to go, including this one, and McGlade really looking on an opportunity of getting past Shepherd as they go through Old Hall Corner, both taking the same amount of sort of runoff area. Well, it looks like Shepherd went a little bit more off onto the grass as opposed to keeping it on the curbs, and that's allowed McGlade to close on in. And Lewis McGlade last time around 121, 125.192, Shepherd 125.126, and now into the mix comes Phil Morby, and he was at least 0.3 of a second quicker than each of these drivers, so now that makes it 2 Ford Focuses against a Honda Civic FK2 as they head into the chicane, and then they'll go through to Knickerbrook for what will be the penultimate time of asking, because our leaders very shortly, they're making their way through Clay Hill into Water Tower, as are these 2 drivers that are battling away over 3rd position. McGlade really, really closing in on Shepherd as they go through into Druids. The Focus could have another run as Shepherd goes on the defensive on the run down to Lodge Corner. If he does have a bit of snap-on oversteer, that could give the opportunity for McGlade to get through, but there goes Morby trying to get through on McGlade through Deer Leap and can't get it through. 1 more lap remains, and at the moment Dan Kell looking to secure his 3rd race win of the season, as the battle for 3rd, 4th and 5th has really come alive in the last lap and a bit, as now Shepherd had a little bit of a run wide towards the inside of Old Hall, but as they go through Cascades, Shepherd is still keeping hold of the final step of the rostrum. McGlade is trying to get through, but he's also having to factor in that he's got Phil Morby right on his case.
Definitely, this all goes. Morby goes round the outside at the hairpin to see if he can try and pull the move off by McGlade. He's not been able to do that, but he has been able to stay tight in behind the Zancho Simsport Ford Focus. So as Shepherd manages to get himself a bit of breathing space heading to Knickerbrook, Morby's looking into Knickerbrook chicane himself, isn't able to pull the move off and loses a little bit more than a car length to the Ford Focus ahead of him. Shepherd again has got this breathing space, but we're on the last half of the lap now, and this is where the Fords have been managing to close up the gap on the Honda. Definitely the tyre battle. Option tyre runners here of Morby and McGlade have definitely had the better choice here, and Shepherd's have been holding on all race somehow. He's managed to get third so far. You can see him dive to the right to take the defensive line as he's done several laps before. Holds off as we see Dan Kell crossing the finishing line to take his third win of the year ahead of championship leader Chris Butcher. Meanwhile, Shepherd manages to hold on to take third place ahead of Lewis McGlade, with Phil Morby completing the top 5.
Well, there you go. 14 races, I think that is now, and still 8 different winners. So it's Chris Butcher 3, Dan Kell 3, Ryan Elliott 3, as Daniel Slattery crosses the line. But looking at the finishing results, Dan Kell winning from Chris Butcher. So Dan Kell really putting himself into the title fight. Very much so. Chris Shepherd with the top 3. Lewis McGlade, who is still in the running for the championship, second coming into this round. The 78 Zansho Simsport Ford Focus ending up 4th and narrowly escaping away from Phil Morby from Team Atagani in the number 14 Ford Focus. Then it was Cameron Brewster, Luke Mitchell, Jordan Hearn, Ben Willis and Callum Wilson that rounded out the top 10 drivers that completed the entire race distance of 15 laps. Bobby Vakuinov, James Lambert, Daniel Slattery, Scott Sovic and Ryan Elliott completed the 15 strong. Ryan Elliott having a race pretty much to forget, with retirements on lap 8 from Bradley Brockies, lap 4 from Ed Straw, lap 3 from Matthew Churgwin and Toby Davis on the second lap after the multi-car incident that saw both himself and Churgwin amongst others being literally thrown from left to right, side to side, and it compromising and thereby ending their respective races. Well, after race 2 out of 3 here at Oulton Park Island Circuit here for the halfway point of the season, we'll be back just after these messages, so stay with us and we'll be back with you very, very soon indeed.
Condition which caused Warren to believe that he was dead.
It's hard to describe it, because when I talk about Cotard syndrome, it just brings back the feelings I had when I was suffering from it, and it's just a feeling of nothing, of just like emptiness. The thing with having a head injury, a brain injury, is you kind of never recover from it. The best way that someone explained it to me is just imagine that you go to work and you use the same road every day, you leave at the same time every day, and you get there at the same time every day, and then one day you leave and you get to a bridge and the bridge is blown up. It's never going to be replaced. You still got to leave for work at the same time, and you still got to get there at the same time, but you've got to find a new route. And basically it's like you have to do twice as much work to get to do the same things.
For Warren, motorsport has helped him to recover mentally, and it's had a huge impact, giving him back a focus and a desire to succeed.
If I could bottle up what happens to me in the racing car and transfer it into other aspects of my life, I'd be a lot more successful. Because it's when I jump in the car with my crash helmet on, the focus is you get into that zone.
And racing hasn't just given these drivers a focus again, it's given them back an identity, something Tony Williams felt he had lost after he survived 2 grenade blasts and was then shot 6 times while serving as an army medic in Afghanistan.
Being told that you're not going to walk again, you've got less than 5% chance of having kids, my whole world got turned upside down. I entered a very dark stage of my life 4 months into my my stay as a patient, and to the point where I'd have been quite happy not to be alive, because I was just in that much pain. One of the things that I quickly realised, now being just an injured veteran, was I've got no identity apart from being an injured veteran. So the fact now I'm in with a team of like-minded individuals where we're all comical and we like to take the mickey out of each other, but we've all got that competitive edge to win. We're a small family. We all can identify with each other, but we're all supportive of each other. We've all got each other's backs, and it's giving me that sense of self back that I didn't have after my injury.
Today is a particularly exciting day for the team. Although conditions are far from ideal, it's the first time that Damon Hill, a former F1 world champion and a patron of the team, is trying out its hand controls. But it's not as easy as it looks.
Well, it's very difficult because I've learned to use automatic shifting devices, and the paddles are normally used for changing gear are now accelerator and brake. So a lot of your automatic reactions, you have to suppress them, and it's very difficult when you get into a situation in a racing car, which you do quite often, where you have to suddenly react and you go back to what you always used to do. I think it's a great endeavour, and I think that anything I can do to put the spotlight on what they're doing, it's not about me, obviously, but I'm fully supportive and admiring of their dedication, and Dave, who's put the team together, is determined to make it stand on its own 2 feet and not be simply an organisation that is asking for help. They want to show what they can do and contribute and compete on their own terms.
Competing on their own terms is a key element of Team Brit, and motorsport provides a platform like no other, where all drivers can race equally regardless of any physical or mental disabilities.
I can't imagine what other people think like in a garage, and like you say, when you're out on the track you're on an equal playing field. People don't see that not having any legs, they just see a Team Brit car go past. And then when you pull into the pits and you get out and they get out and the pit's next to you and they're like, oh, what the, and you're like, yeah, well, it's not about what you've got, it's about how you use it.
The team is no longer strictly ex-military personnel, it's now accepting drivers of all backgrounds, aiming to make motorsport more accessible for the disabled community in the process.
Yeah, so I was born with my disability. I've got a congenital defect to my right lower limb. I kind of went to normal mainstream schools, took part in all sports. I played hockey, football, cricket, rugby, and then I've just finished my kind of 23-year playing career of rugby. So yeah, it's kind of never really held me back, really. I'm obviously the only civilian in the team at the moment. The team's opened the doors to other civilian drivers. But yeah, I definitely think my kind of rugby playing career has helped me kind of interact with the army guys. They give me a little bit of abuse, but they get it straight back. We're the first team to kind of do this, and we're the first team with this kind of technology. But now that we've kind of developed it, there's nothing to say that other teams can't go out there and develop their cars so that other disabled people from other walks of life, and not to say that they can't get in and do that as well.
It's branded itself as the most inspirational team in motorsport, and it's certainly one of the most ambitious. The squad has its sights set on reaching the greatest endurance race in the world, the iconic Le Mans 24 Hours, by 2020, aiming to become the first ever all-disabled team to race at the historic event.
When I first joined, I didn't really... The team were a very long way away from that goal, and it was more of a dream then, I think, a lofty ambition. But when that when the day comes and if I'm part of the team to put a car on the grid and the start of the Le Mans 24-hour race, it'd be the best day of my life. It really will.
The team's come a long way, and it's well aware it still has many obstacles to conquer further down the road. But its members are no strangers to overcoming adversity, and many of them can take comfort in the fact that they truly have endured the worst that life can throw at them. They have an incredibly positive outlook on life, a very fitting characteristic in keeping with the team's ethos of believe and achieve.
Not everybody with a disability is a charity case, and this is what we want to emphasise, that even though you have a disability, you don't have to be labelled or pigeonholed into certain categories. You can go out and race and live a normal life. And if you want to live a normal life, just because you've got a disability doesn't stop you doing that. Some people like to play darts, some people like to play football, some people like to collect stamps. Other people are adrenaline junkies and they love pushing themselves. So motorsport isn't for everybody, but there are some people who just love that buzz.
I'm always the fortunate one. I've obviously met the families of the guys that were lost, and those guys aren't coming back, and I can do the stuff that I do now because I'm still here. So yeah, definitely I live every day as it comes.
I kind of pinch myself now thinking it's too much like a Hollywood script. I'm very proud of it. I'm always humbled to the fact that two friends of mine died that day. But it's not just my life I'm living it for now. I feel like I've got now a sense of I've got a role to play again, where if I can just inspire one person to get off the couch, just to go and change their life to make it better, whether they've got a physical, mental injury or sickness, or anything that's just holding them back. So if we can inspire now a greater community, as well as push ourselves to 2020, would have done even better than just entering a race.
One more race to decide who will be leading the way come the end of the 5th round of the Virtual Motorsport Online Touring Car UK Championship, being hosted here in Cheshire by the Oulton Park Island Circuit, not too far outside of the Chester City Centre. Alex Goldschmidt and Phil Kinch back with you. So 2 different winners from 2 different races. Phil, can it be 3 in a row?
I wouldn't be surprised with the unpredictability of the third race, as we well know, the reverse grid race. I would say we're definitely on for 3 different race winners from 3 different races. But at the same time, we've seen tyres played much more of a part last time in race 2. The option tyre being the better one to be on, and obviously with the Hondas Having those in race 1, they seem to benefit more, but in race 2, they did fall back down the order. So I think it's going to be a case of now we've got less drivers running the option tyre in race 3. Let's just have a quick look down the order. So yeah, Daniel Slattery, Bobby Vakunoff and Scott Sovic. Should he be able to come back, Harry Walshaw? So the rest of the field is actually on prime tyres. So I think this is going to be a much more even situation. The tyres shouldn't play as much of a part, and also with the reverse grid race, it's the last chance for glory this evening. So anyone will have a go, and we've often seen the racing gets a bit more spicier, I think is safe to say, in race 3.
The elbows going out is one way of putting it. Everyone thinking that they might be in a mixed martial arts match. Are they in the octagon? Well, no, not really. However, we have seen it many a times before this season, that drivers will be pushing themselves and also their competitors to the limit, and today will be no exception, Phil.
No, definitely not. No, everyone is going for it. The racing has been really great to see. We've seen lots of side-by-side and panel bashing action, but race 2 was a little bit more well-behaved than race 1 was. But again, the series is delivering on what we like. We love touring car racing. We love watching the action that comes from it. The cars are as equal as they can be. You've got new drivers in the series, and they're going up against the experienced drivers from the first season and taking the fight to them. But with the way that the championship is running at the moment, it is the old hands that are leading at the front via taking the wins, and then the newer drivers are using consistency as their weapon of choice to make sure they keep themselves as close as possible. Should one of those drivers at the front make a mistake and allow them the opportunity to score big.
Weapon of choice, a bit of a Fatboy Slim reference there for you, ladies and gentlemen, even though Phil might have not inadvertently decided to say that, but I thought, well, I'd just best step in and, you know, put it out there. But yeah, I mean, it has been a pretty... Oh, now, there might be a little bit of a spicer in the mix.
Right.
Forget the paprika. You might have to put a bit more, maybe a little bit of a spicy seasoning on this one, because I think we could have a bit of precipitation at the circuit.
Ah, now that will definitely spice things up even more in the last race of the day. Because so far my understanding is that the races and also practice have been dry as well.
Well, it does go to show that the weather can rear its ugly head, and here is the starting grid. Yes, it's looking a bit darker out there, isn't it, Phil? So we're going to have Bobby Vakuinov, who starts from pole position based on the reverse grid draw. Callum Wilson alongside, and then it's Ben Willis and Jordan Hearn, Luke Mitchell and Cameron Brewster around at the top 3 rows. Then it's Phil Morby and Lewis McGlade, and the wipers are on. Yes, it is raining, ladies and gentlemen. Chris Shepherd and Chris Butcher, so it's the 2 Chris's running at the top 10 ahead of Dan Kell, James Lambert, Daniel Slattery, Scott Sovic, Toby Davis, Bradley Brockies, and bringing up the rear, Ed Straw. Now this is a very, very different proposition, because now the situation has been sort of turned upside down on its head, hasn't it, Phil?
It has, yep. Everything's equal now. Everyone's on wet tyres. Front wheel drive and rear wheel drive advantage, they don't really make much difference because the wet equalises everything. So if anything, I would say now we're looking at a race for survival. It's, you know, whoever can put their knowledge to the best, find the best sort of answers to the conditions that they have with the car setup they have, and just make it work. The aim here will just to be to get to the finish and score what points you can, and you're bound to see people either having issues or having incidents on track and people benefiting from it.
Yep, so we're just a few moments away from getting things going. They're heading through the far part of the circuit through Druids, and there you see the wiper on the BMW 330i M Sport of Ben Willis is very much going from left to right as well. Yeah, you're going to basically see, well, there's Callum Wilson, who's going to start alongside as the drivers now make their way onto the starting grid. Ben Willis weaving from side to side to get some additional a couple of degrees of temperature into the carcass of the tyres, which then will help the alloy wheels and the brakes start to increase in temperatures. There we go, the rain is falling and it looks to have increased as the drivers now get themselves into position. Ed Straw, the last of the 17 drivers at the back of the field, in position. Right then, third and final race to curtail what's happened. And Luke Mitchell, that's an instant jump start straight away there. Indeed, he thought he'd get the jump on everyone, and straight away it's pinged him for a jump start. There's a bit of a twitch there from Ben Willis.
Jordan Hearn in the background.
Right in the wheel tracks. Oh dear, Jordan Hearn off the circuit. Slattery going side by side with Sovic, and there is Hearn hard into the barriers coming out of Old Hall. And that was heading through into the avenue, so just through into Denton's as everyone's now trying to make their way through. Rooster tails very, very high indeed as Bakuinov, who started from reverse grid pole, now has Cameron Brewster to his left-hand side. He's also got Lewis McGlade right in his wheel tracks as well as they head down through into the chicane before Knucklebrooke off of Hilltop. And Bakuinov does the defensive run on McGlade, but McGlade looks to the outside. That's brave going through Knucklebrooke, and will the Zancho Simsport Focus make it through? He might have done the job. Bakuinov goes 2 wheels on the grass, and Lewis McGlade now up into 5th position and can start chasing those in front.
And with Luke Mitchell being pinged for his jump start at the start of the race, so effectively we're seeing Ben Willis as the race leader. We'll wait for Mitchell to find out where he is.
That's
Cameron Wilson, sorry.
Well, it is. Well, what has happened to Ben Willis is the bigger question. Well, Ben Willis is only 0.3 of a second behind Luke Mitchell. And there's a bit of a gap between him and Callum Wilson, and then Brewster's got McGlade breathing all over the back bumper and the back tailpipes. Yellow out in sector 3. So someone's had a bit of an off, I believe. And that would have been coming through out of Lodge Corner. So here we go, we're going to have a little bit of a replay. There's Ed Straw, and that's Chris Shepherd. And Ed Straw's just lost, it's just understeered off.
Ouch.
And into the gravel. Wait for it, that's a very good slow-mo pickup from our broadcasters at Simsport Solutions. Cameron Brewster trying to close in on Callum Wilson, that is for 3rd on the road, but in the meantime, whilst they're working together, Lewis McGlade is coming along with them. Brewster takes a bit more curbing there through the chicane before the run through to Knucklebrooke in comparison with Callum Wilson, and Lewis McGlade is trying to close in on them, and McGlade has just been in last time around a 1:35.8. Fastest driver out at the moment is Luke Mitchell, a 1:33.339. So Ben Willis has now got himself into the lead of the race. Cameron Brewster here on your screens in 4th position, the fastest driver in sector number 1. But that hasn't stopped Lewis McGlade from chasing him down as the number 78 Zancho Simsport Ford Focus is closing. And Ben Willis puts in the fastest lap of anybody. And even in these wet weather conditions, that's an absolutely humongously quick lap. Well, make that Callum Wilson now 1:27.871 as Luke Mitchell is currently serving his penalty for the jump starts. Like, literally, it was so blatant. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it, Phil.
No, definitely a jump start. He went a lot earlier than the others did, and was caught up in what was a nice 4-way entry into Old Hall. Unfortunately, like I say, Luke Mitchell now down in 11th place, having served his drive-through. So it's BMW's 1, 2, 3, something we haven't seen in the first 2 races of the day. Ben Willis leading from Callum Wilson with Cameron Brewster in 3rd place. Lewis McGlade, as we well know, a master of conditions, and already, trying to make his way up to the back of Cameron Brewster to see if he can get himself into 3rd position. And behind McGlade we have Phil Morby, and once again Chris Butcher making the best of the challenge before him and putting the skills of his Astra to good use and running inside the top 6. So again, he's had 2 good races so far, and Butcher is doing everything he can to take every point possible, whilst we see some of the younger drivers and newer drivers having some fun up front.
Yes, and behind Chris Butcher is Scott Sovic, Bobby Vakuinov, who started on reverse grid, race 3 pole. Down in 8th place, Dan Kell, Daniel Slattery, the Andrew Jordan tribute band, running out the top 10 ahead of Luke Mitchell, Toby Davis, James Lambert, Chris Shepherd, Bradley Brockies, Jordan Hearn and Ed Straw. And Callum Wilson is trying to close the gap to Ben Willis. The gap is about 1.5 seconds. And Wilson has just closed by about 0.2 of a second on the previous lap. So Callum Wilson in the Wilson Racing 404 BMW 330i M Sport is closing on the leader. Now Ben Willis is another driver that has secured a victory this year. So there are 3 of them on 3, which is Butcher, Kell and Elliott. The ones on 1 win apiece. McGlade is one of them, who's currently sitting in 4th position, about 0.8 of a second behind Cameron Brewster. Ben Willis, who's currently leading the race, also has a victory. Jack Nichols has a victory. Scott Mitchell has a victory. And Ross McGregor has a victory. So there is an opportunity for 2 of the drivers that I mentioned that are currently on 1 win apiece to get the victory. Is now Toby Davis. He is trying to get all up close and personal with Dan Kelly. Goes side by side with the Ford Focus. Now that's a bit brave. He's gone around the outside, and there's Bobby Vakuinov. He's just gone wide. That's going through Druids, and now the run down to Lodge Corner. Toby Davis has done some really great work to get past Dan Kell, and Bobby Vakuinov going through into Druids, and now is starting to stretch away. As Vakuinov, if he's not very much careful, is going to find himself out of sight of the top 11, because it looks like Slattery and Lambert and Kell are looking to get past the Honda Civic, and Slattery's up the inside of Kell. Oh, well, there you go. I thought it might be the case, and Lambert has managed to get past Dan Kell, and he's closing in on Daniel Slattery for what is a bona fide 9th position, as we're on lap number 5 out of 15.
Definitely the wet conditions challenging the drivers here. It's very clear they're trying to find the right lines, trying to see a way that works when they can get past someone, and they are taking every opportunity possible as Slattery tries to hold off James Lambert as they come out of the island hairpin, making their way over the hill and down towards the Knickerbrook chicane. Further up I can see we've got a Drake Racing 1-2 with Cameron Brewster having passed Callum Wilson on the last lap. So Wilson's dropped down to 3rd ahead of McGlade. In the meantime, Slattery is a couple of car lengths ahead of Lambert, and he's doing quite well to maintain that gap, whilst just up in front of Slattery is Toby Davis, who we've already seen involved in the action and trying to do a bit of a comeback drive after 2 poor races earlier this evening. Now the lines may change slightly that the drivers take because of the wet conditions, but it's all about finding the grip as best they can and making sure that they're able to get through each corner in one piece. Now Lambert, as we can see, is closing down Daniel Slattery for 9th place. Slattery takes a slightly wider line through the Lodge Corner, and Lambert takes a standard line. As further back we can see, further in front, sorry, we can see Chris Butcher, Phil Morby and Scott Sovic. So the Subaru passing almost. In fact, yeah, he's trying to pass around the outside at Cascades. Phil Morby. This is the lead for the Independence. No, it's not. Sorry, it's actually It's top 2 drivers in the Independence Championship at the moment, squabbling for 6th position. And Sovic's got the inside line now. If he can keep it clean, Morby tries to go around the outside to try and defend the place. Sovic's got the place, got the drag up the hill. The rear-wheel drive now, kicking in from the Subaru. Not always a good car in the wet, but he's managed to make the standard racing line work for him as Morby tries to have a look going back into Knickerbrook, but it's not enough. He's got to fall in line behind the Subaru, and in the meantime they are both running behind championship leader Chris Butcher, who is in 5th position, and it's possible Sovic could now start gaining ground on Butcher and seeing if he can depose him for 5th place in the race.
Yes, indeed, and Ben Willis has quite literally cantered away into the distance. No one's giving any chase to him, and he looks set for his 2nd victory if all goes well and good. But Daniel Slattery, Norfolk Endpoints Racing Honda Civic, still trying to close in, and that looks to be James Lambert just up ahead. And also good to see quite a few drivers, quite a few people actually joining in with the chat, and it's been rather interesting in terms of Scott Sovic trying to close in. That is Toby Davis just up ahead of him. Davis had a little bit of an off-track excursion. Looks like he's doing it again. and that would have been coming through Cascades and heading towards Lakeside, so they're going to head towards the hairpin. Scott Sovic on the onboard. You can see when he slightly touched the brake, the back end stepped out to the right and left, so the back end did a little bit of a snake hip, so a bit of a shimmy, but he managed to keep it under control as they're going to go through into the chicane heading into Knickerbrook. But it's as you were that Willis leads from Brewster. Wilson, McGlade is looking to get a podium for the first time this evening. Lewis McGlade has been close but not close enough, and Chris Butcher has kept himself in the right place at the right time. He's P5 at the moment. I don't think he's stepped anywhere outside of the top 10 tonight, and that has helped his championship aspirations of a title defences. Oh, that was a bit wide there from Davis, and Sovic might have the run going through into the next right-hander. And this is the battle for P. Well, this is actually Butcher he's got in front of him. So Butcher, now this is going through Deer Leap. Sovic has got a real good run on the Vauxhall Astra, and that was uncharacteristic of Butcher there, wasn't it, Phil?
It was very. He doesn't often make a mistake like that, and Sovic has been following him for the entire lap now as he goes wide again, coming out of Old Hall. It does seem as though there's a few odd dry patches coming out the down the start-finish straight that didn't seem to throw out too much water, so I'm wondering if the circuit's starting to dry out a bit. But in the meantime, Sovic is throwing everything at this as a top 5 place in the offing here, and especially if he's able to pass the championship leader for the top 5 place, that'll go down even well as the 3 cars of Butcher, Sovic and Morby close up into a tight-knit group again, coming through the hairpin. Sovic looking down the inside, taking an early look. In fact, he's going side by side with Butcher. The move could be on, depending on how it goes. Butcher takes a very late turn in and just about manages to hold off the Subaru as they come through Knickerbrook, and that allows Morby once again to close in. But the Subaru seems to have been a better car over the second half of the lap, which is the more quicker part, as they come up to Druids, and to see how they go through there. Now once again, Sovic's closed that gap down. He's pushing as hard as he can in the Subaru. The Subaru seems to be working better actually in the wet than we've seen it work in the dry previously, so Sovic may have unlocked something in the setup here, but he's definitely going for 5th position as Butcher holds on in front, goes into Lodge Corner, takes a nice tight line with Sovic in line behind him, and Morby keeping a watching brief in 7th place as the 2 cars in front battle for that vital top 5. In fact, actually Sovic looking for the inside going into Old Hall, takes a late turn in, and Butcher's stayed on the outside. There may have been a slight bit of contact, I'm not sure, there's a bit of space, but Sovic's fallen in once again. He's definitely the quicker car between himself and Butcher in the Astra, that's clear. It may only be a matter of time before he gets the Subaru past the Astra, as for the second lap in a row they come down Lakeside. There's a bit more of a gap this time, so late braking won't necessarily help, and Sovic is playing the clever game here. He's just trying to figure out where he's stronger than Butcher to see where he can make that pass and definitely get the Subaru up into the top 5 as he closes once more, has a look on the inside at Knickerbrook. It's an earlier look, and I think this time, yeah, Butcher takes a wide line again. That's put Sovic out, and that's allowed Morby to close in. So Sovic has the drive out of the island hairpin, takes over the hill, but in the run to Knickerbrook, Butcher is better on the brakes, and as I say, Morby is there ready and waiting. This one's probably going to go on for a couple more laps.
Yeah, very much the case, Phil, as we're on lap number 9 out of 15 as they come through Druids. As all that's a bit wide onto the grass, another bit of a Ken Block exploitation from Scott Sovic there as they now thread their way through into Lodge Corner. Sovic's got himself back on the black stuff, and he's going to try and chase down Chris Butcher, who's had a successful amount of consistency this evening, and also all the way through the second season of the VMO TCUK series, which is taking place here at Thruxton, not at Thruxton, it was Thruxton a couple of weeks ago. Even I need to get my false teeth back in here, Phil. Oulton Park Island in 2 weeks' time, on the 22nd of September, we will return, but we will head to Croft in Yorkshire for round 6 of the championship, before Snetterton, Knockhill, Silverstone National, and the full brand attached Grand Prix loop on the 17th of November concludes the second season of the Virtual Motorsport Online Touring Car UK Championship. But as we continue to watch on, Butcher keeping the back end of the THR Vauxhall Astra as wide as humanly possible, whereas James Lambert looking up the inside through the chicane, coming off of Hilltop along with Toby Davis. And these two having a great battle over what is 8th position, but things really haven't changed that much at the front end of the field, because Ben Willis is constantly faster than teammate Cameron Brewster. Lewis McGlade, in the meantime, has got himself onto the final step of the rostrum with around about 5 laps to go, as Bradley Brockies from E-Team Britt White battling away with Dan Kell. We've got 5 laps to go. Willis leads it, Brewster second, McGlade, Wilson, Butcher, Sovic, Morby, Davis in 8th, Lambert in 9th, Slattery, Bradley Brockies and Dan Kell on your screens at the moment for 11th and 12th position respectively. Bobby Vakuinov, his race has gone down from from the highs to the lows, unfortunately, for the number 21, as he finds himself in 13th ahead of Luke Mitchell. Chris Shepherd, Ed Straw and Jordan Hearn round out the 17 that are still circulating. We had 21 cars starting qualifying earlier on today, as Brockies makes his way through Old Hall, through into the Avenue. Then it's the run down Denton's into the left-hand sweeper at Cascades. Scott Sovic again closing on Chris Butcher for what is 5th on the road, and still at the moment, Phil, Sovic not able to get past, as Toby Davis and James Lambert are swapping positions going in, but Toby Davis gets the front of the nose of the Vauxhall Astra ahead through the chicane after Hilltop.
It seems to be something actually both Butcher and Davis are able to do with their THR Astras. The front end on that car, on both cars, seems to be incredibly good. That as a challenge for position, they're able to turn in, take a very late break and turn in very lately, and also then because of that still manage to hold the racing line as they come out of the chicane at Knickerbrook. So both Butcher defending from Sovic and Davis defending from Lambert, doing a great job with the Astra there against cars that are, I would say, definitely faster and have better set up for the wet, as again we see Sovic closing in on Butcher as they go through Old Hall on lap number 12 of 15, running down through the Avenue together and heading towards Cascades. Now it's this part of the circuit where we've seen Sovic close up in the Subaru. It's got a good turn of speed here with its wet setup. Both Butcher and Sovic going wide, and Morby again, as we say, keeping a watching brief in 7th. He's ideally placed should any contact or anything happen between these two drivers in front. Sovic taking a slightly wide line, but he's able to get the power down really well, and although the Subaru looks as though it's squirreling a little bit, that power comes in just nicely, and he's got the run down the hill into Knickerbrook again, you know, having a look on the inside, but knowing that Butcher's going to take that late turn in, as he does, slightly early one this time, and he's able to hold the position in front of Sovic, and again towards the second half of the lap as Sovic goes wide, running up towards Clay Hill, he's just trying to go, you know, he's able to close that gap down. So definitely good front ends on the two THR Astras, but James Lambert and Scott Sovic definitely being made to work for the positions they want in front, as there's now a bit of a few car lengths gap between Butcher and Sovic in 6th position. Meanwhile, Toby Davis, it looks as though he's lost out actually to James Lambert at the moment. Oh, sorry, no, he's still attacking. So and Davis attacking hard as well as they come into Lodge Corner. Lambert taking a lot of curb on the inside to try and keep the BMW straight line for taking the apex out of the corner through Deer Leap and onto the start-finish line, and that's given him a few car lengths gap himself ahead of Davis in the other THR Astra that's running. So Davis needs to clean up his racing lines a little as he goes wide coming out of Old Hall, so that's not going to help too much with the tyre wear either, and to see what he can do to try and close down the BMW for the next. In fact, actually no, he goes completely wide, so he's gone wide off the circuit at Cascades, a very, very wide line, and that's going to have cost him some time, whether that's a steering issue or a rig issue possibly. He's just about, that's a very extremely long racing line for Toby Davis, and that's definitely cost him ground to James Lambert, but not position, as he's still ahead of Toby Slattery who's in 10th position.
I thought Toby Davis decided it was going to become a front-wheel drive rallycross car there for a minute, but never mind. But Ben Willis on course for a second victory, and the next time the number 85 BMW crosses the start-finish line, which he'll do very shortly as he goes through Deer Leap. 2 laps remaining of this third and final race, And Ben Willis, the independent title winner from last year, moved up into the big leagues and brought along a couple of compadres to strengthen the drag racing army, and that's exactly what they've done, and they've gone with some pretty good machinery with the BMW 330i M Sport. So this plus one more lap remains, and Ben Willis leading a drag racing 1-2 at the moment, because Cameron Brewster finds himself about 2.3 seconds behind as all. Willis putting the power down coming out of the island hairpin there, Phil. He definitely had a Code Brown tank slapper moment right there.
I do like the fact that the sponsor on the side of Ben Willis's car is Control, and yet a bit of a tank slapper coming out and definitely showing a bit of car control on the way back. So yes, very impressive from our race leader as we head back towards Chris Butcher in 5th place, now defending on the inside line. So Sovic trying a different tactic as the two of them go into Knickerbrook. Butcher able to defend successfully, and Sovic's lost a bit of ground there as the Subaru slid wide, but it also looks as though Phil Morby's lost a bit of ground to Sovic as well. So in the last couple of laps we've got there, that may be game over for Sovic's attack on 5th position on the championship leader currently, but we've seen things change rapidly over the few corners of the race as we see Ben Willis coming over the finish line now and starting the last lap of the race. As Alex has said before, drag racing 1-2 with Cameron Brewster in 2nd place, and then Lewis McGlade in the Sancho Simsport Focus in 3rd. We're seeing Phil Morby close up on Scott Sovic now, so it may well be that Sovic has to defend over the last lap of the race from the Team Atagana Ford Focus driver for that 6th position that he has there. But as we've said, these two are the top 2 drivers in the independence title race, so every point scored they can get here is well earned, especially as they've both been taking the fight to Chris Butcher, who's in one of the works teams. So important points being scored here, whilst up front Ben Willis and Cameron Brewster leading the way in drag racing BMWs.
Yep, so we're coming to the end of 3 races. There have been, we did mention this before the 3rd and final race, that could there have been 3 race winners from this evening? Well, it looks to be the case, because at the moment, going through Clay Hill and the Water Tower, it is Ben Willis from Drag Racing who now makes his way through Druids under the Carlu Bridge, and then just has one major corner to negotiate and a bit of a dip as well through Lodge Corner. And Ben Willis becomes a 2-time race winner this season, taking the victory ahead of drag racing colleague and teammate, the number 39 of Cameron Brewster. And also it's going to be another podium for Sancho Simsport's Lewis McGlade in the number 78 Ford Focus. Callum Wilson takes 4th ahead of Chris Butcher, who pips Scott Sovic to the checkered flag, and it's going to be less than 0.2 of a second, make that a 1/10.5 at the flag. Scott Sovic in 6th ahead of Phil Morby, James Lambert with Toby Davis and Daniel Slattery rounding out the top 10. Here's Luke Mitchell making his way through Clay Hill and Water Tower for the final time, and I've just seen that Slattery actually finished ahead of Toby Davis, with Brady Brockies rounding out the top 11. Dan Kell in 12th, Bobby Vakuinov running out the top 13. Vakuinov started on reverse grid pole position. As Luke Mitchell now makes his way across the line and takes the checkered. And hopefully very shortly we'll have a few more drivers still to come across the line, but it was Ben Willis that won the 3rd and final race. So it has been one winner piece this evening. Ryan Elliott in race 1, Dan Kell in race 2, and this evening for the 3rd and final race, Ben Willis for drag racing and leading home a BMW 1-2. Good to see Lewis McGlade getting another podium for Sancho Simsport, and also to help his title push no end, because Callum Wilson found himself ahead of Chris Butcher at the checkered flag. 3 different race winners here at Oulton Park Island this evening, Phil. It's been a rather good night's worth of racing.
It has 3 cracking races, 3 different race winners as well, and also having the added bonus of a wet race for the final race of the evening has definitely thrown the cat amongst the pigeons, and seeing both Ben Willis and Cameron Brewster taking a 1-2 finish for drag racing and showing that rear-wheel drive cars do actually work pretty well when it's wet, contrary to what most people seem to be aware of. As we say, we've had swings and roundabouts. Race 1 was definitely about people sort of settling in and trying to find the rhythm, and we've had a few incidents there that took place. Race 2 was dominated, I think, by the option tyre choice by those that were able to put it to good use in the hot conditions. And then Race 3 has thrown us a complete curveball with the rain coming on board. It was soaking the track, and then it's the drivers making the best of that with the setups they have, with 2 BMWs leading the way.
Yeah. So we're just waiting for the top 3 from race 3 to. We're going to try and wrap this up as quickly as possible. We all want to go to sleep. We've all got things we need to do, and get ourselves ready for the morning. So let's see if we actually, funnily enough, let's see if we can bring him in. Let's bring in race 3 winner, second one of the season for him, Drake Racing's Ben Willis. Well, Ben, congratulations. Second win of the season so far. Well done. The wet weather really added a nice bit of spiciness to race 3, didn't it?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it is. I think it caught us all off guard, to be honest. We came very close to starting that race on dry tyres, which I think turns out would have been the wrong call. So I think we made it, the right call with the wet tyre. The car was just mega, absolutely mega. It's first time in a long time this season that car's felt that hooked up, and once I managed to get past Bobby and Chris, we just managed to pull away, to be honest. So yeah, it was really good, really good.
It has been a new car to bring in, obviously replacing the 125i M Sport from last year that quite a few drivers did use, including Aidan Millward. I think E-Team Brit also used it as well, amongst others. But it's been a nice addition. We've got some drivers that have decided to stick their 2 cents in, the likes of Callum Wilson, amongst others, that have decided to join the 330i brigade. But it hasn't been easy for Drake Racing this season. You took the title, the independent title last year, came back with a 3-driver crew, and you're trying to battle with the likes of Zancho and also THR. It's not been easy, has it?
No, and I think we're fully aware that we are the underdogs in that fight compared to Zancho, THR. Those guys are just so quick, and fair play to them. But we're doing our best. We're learning loads about the BMW. I think every race we're kind of taking positive steps away in terms of setup, in terms of how the car reacts, and then hopefully with this is something we can build on going forward. So I think we keep getting closer, and maybe there's a few times in races where we're getting hit with a bit of bad luck, just getting caught up in accidents we can't avoid. But hopefully using this momentum, 1-2, it's our second 1-2 of the season. It's really good momentum that we can now move on into the second half of the season and really try and take the fight to those guys.
Well done, Ben. Congratulations on not only your victory, but the 1-2 with Cameron Brewster. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks at Croft on the 22nd of September.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
So Ben Willis from Drake Racing. We have got time. It looks like we've got one of our other drivers in the top 3. Let's bring in Cameron Brewster. So Cameron, another welcome result, a 1-2 for Drake Racing, and yourself finishing, I think it was about 2.5 seconds behind Ben at the checkered flag, and with the weather making it a little bit more difficult, it gave you guys in the BMWs a bit of an opportunity tonight, didn't it?
Yeah, honestly I wasn't expecting the rain, and I was hoping to get the result that we did in the end. Ben's laps at the start were absolutely mega. I just couldn't touch him. Then he managed to win the race with a spin, but no, great result for Drake.
And obviously it's been an interesting development seeing you guys sort of get to grips with the 330i M Sport this season, but it has been pretty good. What are your thoughts going into the next round?
To be honest, given at the start of the season I wasn't even planning to be in the car, I'm just kind of taking each round as it comes and just seeing what happens. Obviously the start of the previous rounds for me haven't been great, but as the evening goes on I tend to do better. So yeah, we'll see what happens and pray for a little bit more rain, I think, in the future.
Okay, well, Cameron Brewster, thank you very much for your time and good luck in a couple of weeks when we see you for round 6.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Well, that really rounds up things here at Oulton Park Island for round 5 of the Virtual Motorsport Online Touring Car UK Championship. And in 2 weeks' time, we head to Croft on the 22nd of September. Join myself, Alex Goldschmidt and Phil Kinch in just a couple of weeks' time. A big thank you to Simsport Solutions for their broadcasting as always. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you for tuning in and good night for now.